Welcome to Story Haven. Please relax. Remember to like, subscribe, and enjoy.
Beowulf by Unknown, translated by John Leslie Hall. Preface. The present work is a modest effort to reproduce approximately, in modern measures, the venerable epic Beowulf. Approximately, I repeat, for a very close reproduction of Anglo-Saxon verse would, to a large extent, be prose to a modern ear. The Haynes-Sokin text and glossary have been closely followed. Occasionally a deviation has been made, but always for what seemed good and sufficient reason. The translator does not aim to be an editor. Once in a while, however, he has added a conjecture of his own to the emendations quoted from the criticisms of other students of the poem. This work is addressed to two classes of readers. From both of these alike the translator begs sympathy and co-operation. The Anglo-Saxon scholar he hopes to please by adhering faithfully to the original. The student of English literature he aims to interest by giving him, in modern garb, the most ancient epic of our race. This is a bold and venturesome undertaking, and yet there must be some students of the Teutonic past willing to follow even a daring guide, if they may read in modern phrases of the sorrows of Hrothgar, of the prowess of Beowulf, and of the feelings that stirred the hearts of our forefathers in their primeval homes. In order to please the larger class of readers, a regular cadence has been used, a measure which, while retaining the essential characteristics of the original, permits the reader to see ahead of him in reading. Perhaps every Anglo-Saxon scholar has his own theory as to how Beowulf should be translated. Some have given us prose versions of what we believe to be a great poem. Is it any reflection on our honoured Kemble and Arnold to say that their translations fail to show a layman that Beowulf is justly called our first epic? Of those translators who have used verse, several have written from what would seem a mistaken point of view. Is it proper, for instance, that the grave and solemn speeches of Beowulf and Hrothgar be put in ballad measures, tripping lightly and airily along? Or, again, is it fitting that the rough martial music of Anglo-Saxon verse be interpreted to us in the smooth measures of modern blank verse? Do we hear what has been beautifully called the clanging tread of a warrior in mail? Of all English translations of Beowulf, that of Professor Garnett alone gives any adequate idea of the chief characteristics of this great Teutonic epic. The measure used in the present translation is believed to be as near a reproduction of the original as modern English affords. The cadences closely resemble those used by Browning in some of his most striking poems. The four stresses of the Anglo-Saxon verse are retained, and as much thesis and anacrusis is allowed as is consistent with a regular cadence. Alliteration has been used to a large extent, but it was thought that modern ears would hardly tolerate it on every line. End rhyme has been used occasionally, internal rhyme sporadically. Both have some warrant in Anglo-Saxon poetry. For end rhyme, see Chapter 1, line 53, and Chapter 1, line 54. For internal rhyme, Chapter 2, line 21, Chapter 6, line 40. What Gumere calls the rhyme-giver has been studiously kept, viz. The first accented syllable in the second half verse always carries the alliteration, and the last accented syllable alliterates only sporadically. Alternate alliteration is occasionally used as in the original. See Chapter 7, line 61, Chapter 8, line 5. No two accented syllables have been brought together, except occasionally after a caesural pause. See Chapter 2, line 19, and Chapter 12, line 1. Or, scientifically speaking, Seever's C type has been avoided as not consonant with the plan of translation. Several of his types, however, constantly occur, e.g. A and a variant, stressed unstressed, stressed unstressed, and stressed unstressed unstressed, stressed, unstressed. B and a variant, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, or unstressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, and a variant of D, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, unstressed. E, stressed, unstressed, unstressed, stressed. Anacrusis gives further variety to the types used in the translation. The parallelisms of the original have been faithfully preserved, e.g. chapter 1 line 16 and chapter 1 line 17, Lord and Wielder of Glory, chapter 1 line 30, chapter 1 line 31, chapter 1 line 32, chapter 2 line 12 and chapter 2 line 13, chapter 2 line 27 and chapter 2 line 28, chapter 3 line 5 and chapter 3 line 6. Occasionally some loss has been sustained, but on the other hand a gain has here and there been made. The effort has been made to give a decided flavour of archaism to the translation. All words not in keeping with the spirit of the poem have been avoided. Again, though many archaic words have been used, there are none, it is believed, which are not found in standard modern poetry. With these preliminary remarks, it will not be amiss to give an outline of the story of the poem. The story. Hrothgar, king of the Danes, or Scyldings, builds a great mead hall or palace, in which he hopes to feast his liege men and to give them presents. The joy of king and retainers is, however, of short duration. Grendel, the monster, is seized with hateful jealousy. He cannot brook the sounds of joyance that reach him down in his fen dwelling near the hall. Often anon he goes to the joyous building, bent on direful mischief. Thane after thane is ruthlessly carried off and devoured, while no one is found strong enough and bold enough to cope with the monster. For 12 years he persecutes Hrothgar and his vassals. Over sea, a day's voyage off, Beowulf of the Geats, nephew of Higelac, king of the Geats, hears of Grendel's doings, and of Hrothgar's misery. He resolves to crush the fell monster and relieve the aged king. With 14 chosen companions, he sets sail for Daneland. Reaching that country, he soon persuades Hrothgar of his ability to help him. The hours that elapse before night are spent in beer drinking and conversation. When Hrothgar's bedtime comes he leaves the hall in charge of Beowulf, telling him that never before has he given to another the absolute wardship of his palace. All retire to rest, Beowulf, as it were, sleeping upon his arms. Grendel comes, the great march-stepper, bearing God's anger. He seizes and kills one of the sleeping warriors, then he advances towards Beowulf. A fierce and desperate hand-to-hand struggle ensues. No arms are used, both combatants trusting to strength and hand-grip. Beowulf tears Grendel's shoulder from its socket, and the monster retreats to his den, howling and yelling with agony and fury. The wound is fatal. The next morning, at early dawn, warriors in numbers flock to the hall Heorot to hear the news. Joy is boundless. Glee runs high. Hrothgar and his retainers are lavish of gratitude and of gifts. Grendel's mother, however, comes the next night to avenge his death. She is furious and raging. While Beowulf is sleeping in a room somewhat apart from the quarters of the other warriors, she seizes one of Hrothgar's favourite counsellors and carries him off and devours him. Beowulf is called. Determined to leave Heorot entirely purified, he arms himself and goes down to look for the female monster. After travelling through the waters many hours, he meets her near the sea bottom. She drags him to her den. There he sees Grendel lying dead. After a desperate and almost fatal struggle with the woman, he slays her, and swims upward in triumph, taking with him Grendel's head. Joy is renewed at Heorot. Congratulations crowd upon the victor. Hrothgar literally pours treasures into the lap of Beowulf, and it is agreed among the vassals of the king that Beowulf will be their next liege lord. Beowulf leaves Daneland. Hrothgar weeps and laments at his departure. When the hero arrives in his own land, Higelac treats him as a distinguished guest. He is the hero of the hour. Beowulf subsequently becomes king of his own people, the Geats. After he has been ruling for 50 years, his own neighborhood is woefully harried by a fire-spewing dragon. Beowulf determines to kill him. In the ensuing struggle both Beowulf and the dragon are slain. The grief of the Geats is inexpressible. They determine, however, to leave nothing undone to honour the memory of their lord. The great funeral pyre is built and his body is burnt. Then a memorial barrow is made, visible from a great distance, that sailors afar may be constantly reminded of the prowess of the national hero of Geatland. The poem closes with a glowing tribute to his bravery, his gentleness, his goodness of heart, and his generosity. It is the devout desire of this translator to hasten the day when the story of Beowulf shall be as familiar to English-speaking peoples as that of the Iliad. Beowulf is our first great epic. It is an epitomized history of the life of the Teutonic races. It brings vividly before us our forefathers of the pre-Alfredian eras in their love of war, of sea, and of adventure. My special thanks are due to Professors Francis A. March and James A. Harrison for advice, sympathy, and assistance. J. L. Hall. End of Preface. Chapter 1. The Life and Death of Scyld. Lo, the Spear-Dane's glory through splendid achievements, the folk-king's former fame we have heard of, how princes displayed then their prowess in battle. Oft Scyld of shaving from scathers in numbers from many a people their mead benches tore. Since first he found him friendless and wretched, the earl had had terror, comfort he got for it, waxed 'neath the welkin, whirled on again, till all his neighbours o'er sea were compelled to bow to his bidding and bring him their tribute. An excellent atheling. After was born him a son and heir, young in his dwelling, whom godfather sent to solace the people. He had marked the misery malice had caused them, that reaved of their rulers they wretched had erstwhile long been afflicted. The Lord, in requital, wielder of glory, with world honour blessed him. Famed was Beowulf, far spread the glory of Scyld's great son in the lands of the Danemen. So the carle that is young, by kindnesses rendered the friends of his father, with fees in abundance must be able to earn that when age approacheth eager companions aid him requitingly, when war assaults him serve him as liegemen, by praiseworthy action must honour be got 'mong all of the races. At the hour that was fated, Scyld then departed to the All-Father's keeping, warlike to wend him. Away then they bear him to the flood of the current, his fond loving comrades, as himself he had bidden, while the friend of the Scyldings word sway wielded, and the well-loved land-prince long did rule them. The ring-stemmed vessel, bark of the atheling, lay there at anchor, icy in glimmer and eager for sailing. The beloved leader laid they down there, giver of rings, on the breast of the vessel, the famed by the mainmast, a many of jewels, of fretted embossings from far lands brought over, was placed near at hand then, and heard I not ever that a folk ever furnished a float more superbly, with weapons of warfare, weeds for the battle, bills and burnies. On his bosom sparked many a jewel that with him must travel on the flush of the flood afar on the current. And favours no fewer they furnished him soothly, excellent folk gems, than others had given him, who when first he was born outward did send him, lone on the main, the merest of infants. And a gold-fashioned standard they stretched under heaven high o'er his head, let the holm currents bear him, seaward consigned him, sad was their spirit, their mood very mournful. Men are not able soothly to tell us, they in halls who reside, heroes under heaven, to what haven he hied. Chapter 2. Scyld's successors. Hrothgar's great mead hall. In the burrows then Beowulf, bairn of the Scyldings, beloved land prince for long-lasting season, was famed mid the folk. His father departed, the prince from his dwelling, till afterward sprang great-minded Halfdene. The Danes in his lifetime he graciously governed, grim-mooded, aged, for bairns of his body born in succession woke in the world, war-troopers' leader, Herugar, Hrothgar, and Halga the Good. Heard I that Ellen was Ongentheows' consort, the well-beloved bedmate of the war-chieflings' leader. Then glory in battle to Hrothgar was given, waxing the war-fame, that willingly kinsmen obeyed his bidding, till the boys grew to manhood, a numerous band. It burned in his spirit to urge his folk to found a great building, a mead-hall grander than men of the era ever had heard of, and in it to share with young and old all of the blessings the Lord had allowed him, save life and retainers. Then the work I find afar was assigned to many races in Middle-earth's regions, to adorn the great folk-hall. In due time it happened early 'mong men that 'twas finished entirely, the greatest of hall buildings, Heorot he named it, who wide-reaching word-sway wielded 'mong earlmen. His promise he brake not, rings he lavished, treasure at banquet. Towered the hall up, high and horn-crested, huge between antlers. It battle-waves bided, the blasting fire-demon. Ere long then from hottest hatred must sword wrath arise for a woman's husband and father. Then the mighty war-spirit endured for a season, bore it bitterly, he who bided in darkness. But light-hearted laughter loud in the building greeted him daily. There was dulcet harp music, clear song of the singer. He said that was able to tell from the old earthmen's beginnings, that Father Almighty earth had created, the winsome wolds that the water encircleth, set exultingly the sun's and the moon's beams to lavish their lustre on the land-folk and races, and earth he embellished in all her regions with limbs and leaves. Life he bestowed too on all the kindreds that live under heaven. So blessed with abundance, brimming with joyance, the warriors abided till a certain one 'gan to dog them with deeds of direfullest malice. A foe in the hall-building, this horrible stranger was Grendel entitled, the march-stepper famous, who dwelt in the moor-fens, the marsh and the fastness. The wan-mooded being abode for a season in the land of the giants when the Lord and Creator had banned him and branded. For that bitter murderer, the killing of Abel, all-ruling father the kindred of Cain crushed with his vengeance. In the feud he rejoiced not, but far away drove him from kindred and kind that crime to atone for, meter of justice. Thence ill-favored creatures, elves and giants, monsters of ocean, came into being, and the giants that long time grappled with God he gave them requital. Chapter 3. Grendel the Murderer. When the sun was sunken he set out to visit the lofty hall building, how the Ring-Danes had used it for beds and benches when the banquet was over. Then he found there reposing many a noble asleep after supper, sorrow the heroes, misery knew not. The monster of evil, greedy and cruel tarried but little. Fell and frantic, and forced from their slumbers 30 of Thanemen, thence he departed, leaping and laughing, his lair to return to, with surfeit of slaughter sallying homeward. In the dusk of the dawning, as the day was just breaking, was Grendel's prowess revealed to the warriors. Then, his meal-taking finished, a moan was uplifted, morning cry mighty. The man-ruler famous, the long-worthy Etheling, sat very woeful, suffered great sorrow, sighed for his liegemen, when they had seen the track of the hateful pursuer, the spirit accursed, too crushing that sorrow, too loathsome and lasting. Not longer he tarried, but one night after continued his slaughter shameless and shocking, shrinking but little from malice and murder. They mastered him fully. He was easy to find then who otherwhere looked for a pleasanter place of repose in the lodges, a bed in the bowers. Then was brought to his notice, told him truly by token apparent, the hall-thane's hatred. He held himself after, further and faster who the foeman did baffle. So ruled he, and strongly strove against justice, lone against all men, till empty uptowered the choicest of houses. Long was the season, 12 winters' time torture suffered the friend of the Scyldings, every affliction, endless agony, hence it after became certainly known to the children of men, sadly in measures, that long against Hrothgar Grendel struggled. His grudges he cherished, murderous malice, many a winter, strife unremitting, and peacefully wished he life woe to live from no liegeman at all of the men of the Dane folk, for money to settle, no counsellor needed count for a moment on handsome amends at the hands of the murderer. The monster of evil fiercely did harass the ill-plotting death-shade, both elder and younger, trapping and tricking them. He trod every night then the mist-covered moor fens. Men do not know where witches and wizards wander and ramble. So the foe of mankind many of evils, grievous injuries, often accomplished. Horrible hermit, Heorot he frequented, gem-bedecked palace, when the nightshades had fallen, since God did oppose him, not the throne could he touch. The light-flashing jewel, love of him knew not. 'Twas a fearful affliction to the friend of the Scyldings, soul-crushing sorrow. Not seldom in private sat the king in his council, conference held they what the brave should determine 'gainst terrors unlooked for. At the shrines of their idols often they promised gifts and offerings, earnestly prayed they the devil from hell would help them to lighten their people's oppression. Such practice they used then, hope of the heathen, hell they remembered in innermost spirit. God they knew not, judge of their actions, all-wielding ruler. No praise could they give the guardian of heaven, the wielder of glory. Woe will be his who through furious hatred his spirit shall drive to the clutch of the fire, no comfort shall look for, wax no wiser. Well for the man who, living his life days, his lord may face and find defense in his father's embrace. End of section 1. Chapter 4. Beowulf goes to Hrothgar's assistance. So Halfdane's kinsman constantly mused on his long-lasting sorrow. The battle-thane clever was not anywise able evils to 'scape from, too crushing the sorrow that came to the people, loathsome and lasting the life-grinding torture, greatest of night woes. So he lax liegeman, good amid Geatmen of Grendel's achievements heard in his home, of heroes then living he was stoutest and strongest, sturdy and noble. He bade them prepare him a bark that was trusty. He said he the war-king would seek o'er the ocean, the folk-leader noble, since he needed retainers. For the perilous project prudent companions chided him little, though loving him dearly. They egged the brave atheling, augured him glory. The excellent knight from the folk of the Geatmen had liegemen selected, likest to prove them trustworthy warriors. With 14 companions the vessel he looked for, a liegeman then showed them, a sea-crafty man, the bounds of the country. Fast the days fleeted, the float was awater, the craft by the cliff. Clomb to the prow then well-equipped warriors, the wave-currents twisted the sea on the sand. Soldiers then carried on the breast of the vessel bright shining jewels, handsome war-armor, heroes outshoved them, war-men the wood-ship, on its wished-for adventure. The foamy-necked floater fanned by the breeze, likest a bird glided the waters, till 24 hours thereafter the twist-stemmed vessel had travelled such distance that the sailing-men saw the sloping embankments, the sea-cliffs gleaming, precipitous mountains, nesses enormous. They were nearing the limits at the end of the ocean. Up thence quickly the men of the Weders clomb to the mainland, fastened their vessel, battle-weeds rattled, war-burnies clattered. The wielder they thanked that the ways o'er the waters had waxen so gentle. Then well from the cliff edge the guard of the Scyldings, who the sea-cliff should see to, saw o'er the gangway brave ones bearing beauteous targets, armor all ready. Anxiously thought he, musing and wondering what men were approaching. High on his horse then Hrothgar's retainer turned him to coastward, mightily brandished his lance in his hands, questioned with boldness: "Who are ye men here, mail-covered warriors, clad in your corslets, come thus a-driving a high-riding ship o'er the shoals of the waters, and hither 'neath helmets have hied o'er the ocean? I have been strand-guard, standing as warden, lest enemies ever anywise ravage Danish dominions with army of warships. More boldly never have warriors ventured hither to come, of kinsmen's approval. Word leave of warriors, I ween that ye surely nothing have known. Never a greater one of earls o'er the earth have I had a sight of than is one of your number, a hero in armor, no low-ranking fellow adorned with his weapons, but launching them little, unless looks are deceiving, and striking appearance. Ere ye pass on your journey as treacherous spies to the land of the Scyldings, and farther fare, I fully must know now what race ye belong to, ye far-away dwellers, seafaring sailors. My simple opinion hear ye and hearken. Haste is most fitting plainly to tell me what place ye are come from." Chapter 5. The Geats reach Heorot. The chief of the strangers rendered him answer, war-troopers' leader, and word-treasure opened: "We are sprung from the lineage of the people of Geatland, and he lacks us hearth-friends. To heroes unnumbered my father was known, a noble head warrior Ecgtheow titled. Many a winter he lived with the people, ere he passed on his journey, old from his dwelling. Each of the counsellors wisely mid-world folk well remembers him. We, kindly of spirit, the lord of thy people, the son of King Halfdene, have come here to visit. Folk troops' defender, be free in thy counsels. To the noble one bear we a mighty commission, the helm of the Daemon. We shall hide, I ween, naught of our message. Thou knowest if it happen, as we soothly heard say, that some savage despoiler, some hidden pursuer, on nights that are murky, by deeds very direful mid the Daemon exhibits hatred unheard of, horrid destruction, and the falling of dead. From feelings least selfish I am able to render counsel to Hrothgar, how he, wise and worthy, may worst the destroyer. If the anguish of sorrow should ever be lessened, comfort come to him, and care-waves grow cooler, or ever hereafter he agonies suffer, and troublous distress, while towereth upward the handsomest of houses high on the summit." Bestriding his stallion, the strand-watchman answered, the doughty retainer: "The difference surely 'twixt words and works, the warlike shield-bearer who judgeth wisely well shall determine. This band, I hear, beareth no malice to the prince of the Scyldings. Pass ye then onward with weapons and armor. I shall lead you in person. To my war-trusty vassal's command I shall issue to keep from all injury your excellent vessel, your fresh-tarred craft 'gainst every opposer, close by the seashore, till the curved-necked bark shall waft back again the well-beloved hero o'er the way of the water to wed her dominions. To warrior so great 'twill be granted sure in the storm of strife to stand secure." Onward they fared then, the vessel lay quiet, the broad-bottomed bark was bound by its cable firmly at anchor. The bore signs glistened bright on the visors vivid with gilding, blaze hardened, brilliant, the bore acted warden. The heroes hastened, hurried the liegemen, descended together, till they saw the great palace, the well-fashioned wassail hall, wondrous and gleaming. Mid world-folk and kindred that was widest reputed, of halls under heaven which the hero abode in. its lustre enlightened lands without number. Then the battle-brave hero showed them the glittering court of the bold ones, that they easily thither might fare on their journey. The aforementioned warrior, turning his courser, quoth as he left them: "'Tis time I were faring. Father Almighty grant you his grace, and give you to journey safe on your mission. To the sea I will get me 'gainst hostile warriors as warden to stand." Chapter 6. Beowulf introduces himself at the palace. The highway glistened with many-hued pebble, a by-path led the liegemen together. Firm and hand-locked the war-byrnie glistened, the ring-sword radiant rang mid the armour as the party was approaching the palace together in warlike equipments. 'Gainst the wall of the building their wide-fashioned war-shields they weary did set then, battle-shields sturdy, benchwood they turned then, their battle-sarks rattled, the gear of the heroes. The lances stood up then, all in a cluster, the arms of the seamen ashen shafts mounted with edges of iron, the armour-clad troopers were decked with weapons. Then a proud-mooded hero asked of the champions questions of lineage. "From what borders bear ye your battle-shields plated, gilded and gleaming, your grey-coloured byrnies, helmets with visors and heap of war-lances? To Hrothgar the king I am servant and liegeman. 'Mong folk from far lands found I have never Men so many of mien more courageous. I ween that from valour, nowise as outlaws, But from greatness of soul ye sought for King Hrothgar.'" Then the strength-famous earlman answer rendered. The proud-mooded Wedder-chief replied to his question, Hardy 'neath helmet: "Here lacks mates are we, Beowulf hight I. To the bairn of Halfdene, the famous folk leader, I freely will tell to thy prince my commission, If pleasantly hearing he'll grant we may greet him So gracious to all men." Wulfgar replied then, He was prince of the Wendels. His boldness of spirit was known unto many, His prowess and prudence. "The prince of the Scyldings, the friend lord of Danemen, I will ask of thy journey, The giver of rings, as thou urgest me do it, The folk chief famous, and inform thee early What answer the good one mindeth to render me." He turned then hurriedly where Hrothgar was sitting, Old and hoary, his earlmen attending him. The strength-famous went till he stood at the shoulder Of the lord of the Danemen, of courteous thanemen The custom he minded. Wulfgar addressed then His friendly liege lord: "Folk of the Geatmen O'er the way of the waters are wafted hither, Faring from far lands, the foremost in rank, The battle-champion's Beowulf title. They make this petition, with thee, O my chieftain, To be granted a conference. O gracious King Hrothgar, Friendly answer refuse not to give them. In war-trappings weeded worthy they seem Of earls to be honored. Sure the atheling is doughty, Who headed the heroes hitherward coming." Section 2. Chapter 7. Hrothgar and Beowulf. Hrothgar answered, helm of the Scyldings: "I remember this man as the merest of striplings. His father long dead now was Ecgtheow titled. Him Hraethel the Geatman granted at home his one only daughter. His battle-brave son is come but now, Sought a trustworthy friend. Seafaring sailors asserted it then, Who valuable gift-gems of the Geatmen carried As peace-offering thither, that he 30 men's grapple Has in his hand, the hero in battle. The holy Creator usward sent him To Westdane warriors, I ween, for to render 'Gainst Grendel's grimness gracious assistance. I shall give to the good one gift-gems for courage, Hasten to bid them hither to speed them, To see assembled this circle of kinsmen, Tell them expressly their welcome in sooth To the men of the Danes." The door of the building Wulfgar went then, This word message shouted: "My victorious liege lord bade me to tell you The East Danes' atheling, that your origin knows he, and o'er wave billows wafted you welcome are hither, valiant of spirit. Ye straightway may enter, clad in corslets, cased in your helmets, to see King Hrothgar. Here let your battle boards, wood spears, and war shafts await your conferring." The mighty one rose then, with many a liege man, an excellent thane group. Some there did await them, and as bid of the brave one the battle gear guarded. Together they hied them, while the hero did guide them, 'neath Heorot's roof. The high-minded went then, sturdy 'neath helmet, till he stood in the building. Beowulf spake, his byrnie did glisten, his armour seamed over by the art of the craftsman. "Hail thou Hrothgar! I am Higelac's kinsman and vassal forsooth. Many a wonder I dared as a stripling. The doings of Grendel in far-off fatherland I fully did know of. Seafarers tell us, this hall building standeth, excellent edifice, empty and useless, to all the earlmen after even light's glimmer 'neath heaven's bright hues hath hidden its glory. This my earls then urge me, the most excellent of them, carles very clever, to come and assist thee, folk leader Hrothgar. Fully they knew of the strength of my body. Themselves they beheld me when I came from the contest, when covered with gore foes I escaped from, where 5 I had bound, the giant race wasted, in the waters destroying the knickers by night, bore numberless sorrows, the wedders avenged, woes had they suffered, enemies ravaged. Alone now with Grendel I shall manage the matter, with the monster of evil, the giant decide it. Thee I would therefore beg of thy bounty, bright Danish chieftain, lord of the Scyldings, this single petition, not to refuse me, defender of warriors, friend lord of folks. So far have I sought thee, that I may unaided, my earlmen assisting me, this brave-mooded warband, purify Heorot. I have heard on inquiry the horrible creature from veriest rashness recks not for weapons. I this do scorn then. So be Higelac gracious, my liege lord beloved, lenient of spirit, to bear a blade or a broad-fashioned target, a shield to the onset. Only with hand-grip the foe I must grapple. Fight for my life then, foeman with foeman. Ye fain must rely on the doom of the lord whom death layeth hold of. I ween he will wish, if he win in the struggle, to eat in the war-hall earls of the Geat folk, boldly to swallow them, as of yore he did often the best of the Hraithmen. Thou needest not trouble a head-watch to give me. He will have me dripping and dreary with gore, if death overtake me, will bear me off bleeding, biting and mouthing me. The hermit will eat me, heedless of pity, marking the moorfens. No more wilt thou need then find me my food. If I fall in the battle, send to Higelac the armor that serveth to shield my bosom, the best of equipments, richest of ring-mails. 'Tis the relic of Hraithlaf, the work of Wayland. Goes weird as she must go. Chapter 8 Hrothgar and Beowulf Continued. Hrothgar discoursed, the helm of the Scyldings. To defend our folk and to furnish assistance, thou soughtest us hither, good friend Beowulf. The fiercest of feuds thy father engaged in. Ath Olaf killed he in hand-to-hand conflict mid Whitlefingish warriors. Then the Wederish people, for fear of a feud, were forced to disown him. Thence flying he fled to the folk of the South Danes, the race of the Scyldings. O'er the roll of the waters I had lately begun then to govern the Danemen, the hoard seat of heroes held in my youth, rich in its jewels. Dead was Herogar, my kinsman and elder had earth-joys forsaken, half Dana his bairn. He was better than I am. That feud thereafter for a fee I compounded. O'er the weltering waters to the Wylfings I sent ornaments old. Oaths did he swear me. It pains me in spirit to any to tell it what grief in Heorot Grendel hath caused me, what horror unlooked for by hatred unceasing! Waned is my war band, wasted my hall troop. Wyrd hath oft cast them to the clutches of Grendel. God can easily hinder the scather from deeds so direful. Oft drunken with beer, o'er the ale vessel promised warriors in armour they would willingly wait on the wassailing benches a grapple with Grendel, with grimmest of edges. Then this mead hall at morning with murder was reeking. The building was bloody at breaking of daylight, the bench deals all flooded, dripping and bloodied, the folk hall was gory. I had fewer retainers, dear beloved warriors, whom death had laid hold of. Sit at the feast now, thine tents unto heroes, thy victor fame show as thy spirit doth urge thee. For the men of the Geats then together assembled. In the beer hall blithesome a bench was made ready. There warlike in spirit they went to be seated, proud and exultant. A liegeman did service, who a beaker embellished bore with decorum, and gleaming drink poured. The gleeman sang whilom hearty in heret. There were heroes rejoicing, a numerous war band of weders and danemen. Chapter 9. Unferth taunts Beowulf. Unferth spoke up, Ecglaf his son, who sat at the feet of the lord of the Scyldings, opened the jousting. The journey of Beowulf, seafarer doughty, gave sorrow to Unferth and greater chagrin too. For granted he never that any man else on earth should attain to gain under heaven more glory than he. Art thou Beowulf with Breca did struggle on the wide sea currents at swimming contended, where to humour your pride the ocean ye tried, from vainest vaunting adventured your bodies in the care of the waters? And no one was able, nor lief nor loth one, in the least to dissuade you your difficult voyage. Then ye ventured a swimming, where your arms outstretching the streams ye did cover, the mere ways measured, mixing and stirring them, glided the ocean, angry the waves were, with the weltering of winter. In the water's possession he toiled for a seven-night, he at swimming outdid thee, in strength excelled thee. Then early at morning, on the Heathoreme shore the whole currents tossed him. Sought he thenceward to the home of his fathers, beloved of his liegemen, the land of the Brondings, the peace castle pleasant, where a people he wielded had borough and jewels. The pledge that he made thee, the son of Beanstan, hath soothly accomplished. Then I ween thou wilt find thee less fortunate issue, though ever triumphant in onset of battle, a grim grappling, if Grendel thou darest for the space of a night near by to wait for. Beowulf answered, offspring of Ecgtheow: My good friend Unfair, sure freely and wildly thou fuddled with beer of Breca hast spoken, hast told of his journey. A fact I allege it, that greater strength in the waters had I then, ills in the ocean, than any man else had. We made agreement as the merest of striplings promised each other, both of us then were younkers in years, that we yet would adventure out on the ocean. It all we accomplished. While swimming the sea floods, sword blade unscabbarded, boldly we brandished, our bodies expected to shield from the sharks. He sure wasn't able to swim on the waters further than I could, more swift on the waves, nor would I from him go. Then we two companions stayed in the ocean 5 nights together, till the currents did part us, the weltering waters, weathers the bleakest, and nethermost night, and the north wind whistled, fierce in our faces. Fell were the billows. The mere fish's mood was mightily ruffled, and there against foemen my firm knotted corslet, hand-jointed, hardy, help did afford me. My battle-sark braided, brilliantly gilded, lay on my bosom. To the bottom then dragged me, a hateful fiend scather, seized me and held me, grim in his grapple. 'Twas granted me, natheless, to pierce the monster with the point of my weapon, my obedient blade,
battle oft carried, the mighty mere creature by means of my hand blow. End of section 3. Chapter 10. Beowulf silences Unferth, glee is high. So ill-meaning enemies often did cause me sorrow the sorest. I served them, in quittance, with my dear-loved sword, as in sooth it was fitting. They missed the pleasure of feasting abundantly, ill-doers of evil, of eating my body, of surrounding the banquet deep in the ocean. But wounded with edges early at morning they were stretched ahigh on the strand of the ocean, put to sleep with the sword, that sea-going travellers no longer thereafter were hindered from sailing the foam-dashing currents. Came a light from the east, God's beautiful beacon, the billows subsided, that well I could see the nesses projecting, the blustering crags. Weird often saveth the undoomed hero if doughty his valour. But me did it fortune to fell from my weapon 9 of the nickers. Of night struggle harder 'neath dome of the heaven heard I but rarely, nor of wight more woeful in the waves of the ocean, yet I 'scaped with my life the grip of the monsters, weary from travel. Then the waters bear me to the land of the Finns, the flood with the current, the weltering waves. Not a word hath been told me of deeds so daring done by thee, Unferth, and of sword terror none. Never hath Breca at the play of the battle, nor either of you two, feat so fearless performed with weapons, glinting and gleaming. I utter no boasting, though with cold-blooded cruelty thou killedst thy brothers, thy nearest of kin, thou needs must in hell get direful damnation though doughty thy wisdom. I tell thee in earnest, offspring of Ecglaf, never had Grendel such numberless horrors, the direful demon, done to thy liege lord, harrying in Heorot, if thy heart were as sturdy, thy mood as ferocious as thou dost describe them. He hath found out fully that the fierce burning hatred, the edge battle eager, of all of your kindred, of the victory shieldings, need little dismay him. Oaths he exacteth, not any he spares of the folk of the Danemen, but fighteth with pleasure, killeth and feasteth, no contest expecteth from spear Danish people. But the prowess and valour of the earls of the Geatmen early shall venture to give him a grapple. He shall go who is able bravely to banquet, when the bright light of morning which the second day bringeth, the sun in its ether robes, o'er the children of men shines from the southward. Then the grey-haired war-famed giver of treasure was blithesome and joyous. The bright Danish ruler expected assistance, the people's protector heard from Beowulf his bold resolution. There was laughter of heroes, loud was the clatter, the words were winsome. Wealhtheow advanced then, consort of Hrothgar, of courtesy mindful, gold-decked saluted the men in the building, and the free-born woman the beaker presented to the lord of the kingdom, first of the East Danes, bade him be blithesome when beer was a-flowing, lief to his liegeman. He lustily tasted of banquet and beaker, battle-famed ruler. The Helmingish lady then graciously circled mid all the liegemen lesser and greater, treasure cups tendered, till time was afforded that the decorous-mooded diademed folk-queen might bear to Beowulf the bumper of Erunning. She greeted the Geat prince, God she did thank, most wise in her words, that her wish was accomplished that in any of earlmen she ever should look for solace in sorrow. He accepted the beaker, battle-bold warrior, at Wealhtheow's giving. Then equipped for combat quoth he in measures. Beowulf spake, offspring of Ecgtheow: I purposed in spirit when I mounted the ocean, when I boarded my boat with a band of my liegemen. I would work to the fullest the will of your people, or in foes' clutches fastened fall in the battle. Deeds I shall do of daring and prowess, or the last of my life days live in this mead hall." These words to the lady were welcome and pleasing. The boast of the Geatman, with gold trappings broidered, went the free-born folk queen her fond lord to sit by. Then again as of yore was heard in the building courtly discussion, conquerors shouting. Heroes were happy, till Halfdane's son would go to his slumber to seek for refreshing. For the horrid hell monster in the hall building knew he a fight was determined. Since the light of the sun they no longer could see, and lowering darkness o'er all had descended, and dark under heaven shadowy shapes came shying around them. The liegemen all rose then, one saluted the other, Hrothgar Beowulf, in rhythmical measures wishing him well, and, the wassail hall giving to his care and keeping, quoth he departing: "Not to any one else have I ever entrusted but thee and thee only the hall of the Danemen, since high I could heave my hand and my buckler. Take thou in charge now the noblest of houses, be mindful of honor, exhibiting prowess, watch 'gainst the foeman. Thou shalt want no enjoyments, survive thou safely adventure so glorious." Chapter 11. All sleep save one. Then Hrothgar departed, his earl throng attending him, folk lord of Scyldings, forth from the building. The war chieftain wished then Walchtheow to look for the queen for a bedmate. To keep away Grendel, the glory of kings had given a hall watch, as men heard recounted, for the king of the Danemen he did special service, gave the giant a watcher, and the prince of the Geatmen implicitly trusted his warlike strength and the wielder's protection. His armor of iron off him he did then, his helmet from his head. To his henchman committed his chase-handled chain-sword, choicest of weapons, and bade him bide with his battle equipments. The good one then uttered words of defiance, Beowulf Geatman, ere his bed he upmounted: "I hold me no meaner in matters of prowess, in warlike achievements, than Grendel does himself. Hence I seek not with sword edge to soothe him to slumber, of life to bereave him, though well I am able. No battle skill has he, that blows he should strike me, to shatter my shield, though sure he is mighty in strife and destruction. But struggling by night we shall do without edges, dare he to look for weaponless warfare, and wise-mooded father the glory apportion, God ever holy, on which hand soever to him seemeth proper." Then the brave-mooded hero bent to his slumber, the pillow received the cheek of the noble, and many a martial mere thane attending sank to his slumber. Seemed it unlikely that ever thereafter any should hope to be happy at home, hero friends visit or the lordly troop castle where he lived from his childhood. They had heard how slaughter had snatched from the wine-hall, had recently ravaged of the race of the Scyldings too many by far. But the Lord to them granted the weaving of war speed, to Wederish heroes aid and comfort, that every opponent by one man's war might they worsted and vanquished, by the might of himself. The truth is established that God Almighty hath governed for ages kindreds and nations. A night very lurid the traveller at twilight came tramping and striding. The warriors were sleeping who should watch the horned building, one only excepted. Mid earthmen 'twas stablished, the implacable foeman was powerless to hurl them to the land of shadows, if the Lord were unwilling, but serving as warder, in terror to foemen he angrily bided the issue of battle. Chapter 12. Grendel and Beowulf. 'Neath the cloudy cliffs came from the moor then Grendel going, God's anger bare he.
The monster intended some one of the earthmen in the hall building grand to entrap and make way with. He went under welkin where well he knew of the wine joyous building, brilliant with plating, gold hall of earthmen. Not the earliest occasion he the home and manor of Hrothgar had sought, ne'er found he in life days later nor earlier hardier hero, hall thanes more sturdy. Then came to the building the warrior marching, bereft of his joyance. The door quickly opened, on fire hinges fastened, when his fingers had touched it. The fell one had flung then, his fury so bitter, open the entrance. Early thereafter the foeman trod the shining hall pavement. Strode he angrily. From the eyes of him glimmered a lustre unlovely likest to fire. He beheld in the hall the heroes in numbers, a circle of kinsmen sleeping together, a throng of thane-men, and his thoughts were exultant. He minded to sunder from each of the thane-men the life from his body, horrible demon, ere morning came, since fate had allowed him the prospect of plenty. Providence willed not to permit him any more of men under heaven to eat in the night time. Higelac's kinsman great sorrow endured how the dire-mooded creature in unlooked-for assaults were likely to bear him. No thought had the monster of deferring the matter, but on earliest occasion he quickly laid hold of a soldier asleep, suddenly tore him, bit his bone prison, the blood drank in currents, swallowed in mouthfuls. He soon had the dead man's feet and hands too, eaten entirely. Nearer he strode then, the stout-hearted warrior snatched as he slumbered, seizing with hand-grip, forward the foeman foined with his hand. Caught he quickly the cunning deviser, on his elbow he rested. This early discovered the master of malice, that in Middle-earth's regions, 'neath the whole of the heavens, no hand-grapple greater in any man else had he e'er encountered. Fearful in spirit, faint-mooded waxed he, not oft could betake him, death was he pondering, would fly to his covert, seek the devil's assembly. His calling no more was the same he had followed long in his lifetime. The liege kinsman worthy of Higelac minded his speech of the evening. Stood he up straight and stoutly did seize him, his fingers crackled, the giant was outward, the earl stepped farther. The famous one minded to flee away farther, if he found an occasion, and often away, avoiding delay, to fly to the fen moors. He fully was ware of the strength of his grapple in the grip of the foeman. 'Twas an ill-taken journey that the injury bringing harrying harmer to Heorot wandered. The palace re-echoed, to all the Danemen, dwellers in castles, to each of the bold ones, earlmen was terror. Angry they both were, arch-wardens raging. Rattled the building. 'Twas a marvellous wonder that the wine-hall withstood then the bold in battle, bent not to earthward, excellent earth-hall, but within and without it was fastened so firmly in fetters of iron, by the art of the armourer. Off from the sill there bent mead benches many, as men have informed me, adorned with gold-work, where the grim ones did struggle. The shielding wise men weened ne'er before that by might and main strength a man under heaven might break it in pieces, bone-decked, resplendent, crush it by cunning, unless clutch of the fire in smoke should consume it. The sound mounted upward novel enough, on the North Danes fastened a terror of anguish, on all of the men there who heard from the wall the weeping and plaining, the song of defeat from the foeman of heaven, heard him hymns of horror howl, and his sorrow hell-bound bewailing. He held him too firmly who was strongest of main strength of men of that era. Section 5. Chapter 13. Grendel is vanquished. For no cause whatever would the earlmen's defender leave in life-joys the loathsome newcomer. He deemed his existence utterly useless To men under heaven. Many a noble of Beowulf brandished his battle sword old, Would guard the life of his lord and protector, The far famous chieftain, if able to do so, While waging the warfare: this wist they but little, Brave battle thanes, while his body intending To slit into slivers, and seeking his spirit, That the relentless foeman nor finest of weapons Of all on the earth, nor any of war builds Was willing to injure, but weapons of victory Swords and such like he had sworn to dispense with. His death at that time must prove to be wretched, And the faraway spirit widely should journey Into enemies' power. This plainly he saw then who with mirth of mood Malice no little had wrought in the past On the race of the earthmen to God he was hostile, That his body would fail him, but Higelac's hardy henchman and kinsman Held him by the hand: hateful to other Was each one if living. A body wound Suffered the direful demon, damage incurable Was seen on his shoulder, his sinews were shivered, His body did burst. To Beowulf was given Glory in battle. Grendel from thenceward Must flee and hide him in the fen cliffs and marshes, Sick unto death. His dwelling must look for, Unwinsome and woeful: he wist the more fully The end of his earthly existence was nearing, His life days' limits. At last for the Danemen, When the slaughter was over, their wish was accomplished. The comer from far land had cleansed them of evil, Wise and valiant: the war hall of Hrothgar Saved it from violence. He joyed in the night work, In repute for prowess. The prince of the Geatmen For the East Danish people his boast had accomplished, Bettered their burdensome bale sorrows fully. The craft begot evil they erstwhile had suffered And were forced to endure from crushing oppression, Their manifold misery. 'Twas a manifest token, When the hero in battle the hand suspended, The arm and the shoulder: there was all of the claw Of Grendel together, 'neath great stretching hall roof. CHAPTER XIV. Rejoicing of the Danes. In the midst of the morning many a warrior Stood round the gift hall, as the story is told me. Folk princes fared them from far and from near Through long stretching journeys to look at the wonder, The footprints of the foeman. Few of the warriors who gazed on the foot tracks Of the inglorious creature his parting from life Pained very deeply: how, weary in spirit, Off from those regions in combats conquered He carried his traces, fated and flying, To the flood of the Knickers. There in bloody billows bubbled the currents, The angry eddy was everywhere mingled And seething with gore, welling with sword blood. His death doomed had hid him, when reaved of his joyance He laid down his life in the lair he had fled to, His heathenish spirit, where hell did receive him. Thence the friends from of old backward turned them, And many a younker from merry adventure, Striding their stallions, stout from the seaward, Heroes on horses. There were heard very often Beowulf's praises: Many often asserted that neither south nor north, In the circuit of waters, o'er outstretching earth plain, None other was better 'mid bearers of war shields, More worthy to govern 'neath the arch of the ether. Not any, however, 'gainst the friend lord muttered, Mocking words uttered of Hrothgar the gracious, A good king he. Oft the famed ones permitted Their fallow skinned horses to run in rivalry, Racing and chasing, where the field ways appeared to them Fair and inviting, known for their excellence. Oft a thane of the folklore, a man of celebrity, Mindful of rhythms, who ancient traditions Treasured in memory, new word groups found properly bound, The bard after 'gan then Beowulf's venture Wisely to tell of, and words that were clever To utter skilfully, earnestly speaking. Everything told he that he heard as to Sigmund's mighty achievements, Many things hidden, the strife of the Wælsing, The wide-going ventures the children of men knew of but little, the feud and the fury, but Fitela with him, when such like matters he minded to speak of, uncle to nephew, as in every contention each to other was ever devoted. A numerous host of the race of the Scathers they had slain with the sword edge. To Sigmund accrued then no little of glory, when his life days were over, since he sturdy in struggle had destroyed the great dragon, the hoard treasure's keeper. 'Neath the hoar greyish stone he, the son of the atheling, unaided adventured the perilous project. Not present was Fitela, yet the fortune befell him of forcing his weapon through the marvellous dragon that it stood in the wall. Well honoured weapon, the worm was slaughtered. The great one had gained then by his glorious achievement to reap from the ring hoard richest enjoyment, as best did it please him. His vessel he loaded, shining ornaments on the ship's bosom carried, kinsman of wiles. The drake in heat melted. He was farthest famed of fugitive pilgrims, mid wide scattered world folk, for works of great prowess, ward troopers' shelter. Hence waxed he in honour. Afterward Herumode's hero strength failed him, his vigour and valour. Mid venomous haters to the hands of the foemen he was foully delivered, off driven early. Agony billows oppressed him too long, to his people he became then, to all the athelings, an ever great burden. And the daring one's journey in days of yore many wise men were wont to deplore, such as hoped he would bring them help in their sorrow, that the son of their ruler should rise into power, holding the headship held by his fathers, should govern the people, the gold hoard and borough. The kingdom of heroes, the realm of the Scyldings, he to all men became then far more beloved, he a lax kinsman, to kindreds and races, to his friends much dearer. Him malice assaulted. Off running and racing on roadsters they measured the dun-coloured highways. Then the light of the morning was hurried and hastened. Went henchmen in numbers to the beautiful building, bold ones in spirit to look at the wonder. The liege lord himself then from his wife bower wending, warden of treasures, glorious trod with troopers unnumbered, famed for his virtues, and with him the queen wife measured the mead ways, with maidens attending. Chapter 15 Hrothgar's Gratitude. Hrothgar discoursed, to the hall building went he. He stood by the pillar, saw the steep rising hall roof gleaming with gold gems, and Grendel his hand there. For the sight we behold now, thanks to the wielder, early be offered. Much evil I bided, snaring from Grendel. God can e'er accomplish wonder on wonder, wielder of glory. But lately I reckoned ne'er under heaven comfort to gain me for any of sorrows. While the handsomest of houses horrid with bloodstain, gory uptowered, grief had offrightened each of the wise ones who weened not that ever the folk troops' defences 'gainst foes they should strengthen, 'gainst spirits and monsters. Through the might of the wielder a doughty retainer hath a deed now accomplished which erstwhile we all with our excellent wisdom failed to perform. May affirm very truly what woman soever in all of the nations gave birth to the child, if yet she surviveth, that the long-ruling lord was lavish to herward in the birth of the bairn. Now Beowulf dear, most excellent hero, I'll love thee in spirit as bairn of my body. Bear well henceforward the relationship new. No lack shall befall thee of earth joys any I ever can give thee. Full often for lesser service I've given hero less hardy hoard treasure precious, to a weaker in war strife. By works of distinction thou hast gained for thyself now that thy glory shall flourish forever and ever. The all-ruler quite thee with good from his hand as he hitherto did thee. Beowulf answered, Ecgtheow's offspring. But labour of glory most gladly achieved we, a combat accomplished, unquailing we ventured the enemy's grapple. I would grant it much rather thou wert able to look at the creature in person, faint unto failing, a foe and his trappings. On murder bed quickly I minded to bind him with firm holding fetters, that forced by my grapple low he should lie in life and death struggle, lest his body escape. I was wholly unable, since God did not will it, to keep him from going, not held him that firmly, hated opposer. Too swift was the foeman, yet safety regarding he suffered his hand behind him to linger, his arm and shoulder to act as watcher. No shadow of solace the woebegone creature found him there natheless. The hated destroyer liveth no longer, lashed for his evils, but sorrow hath seized him, and snare meshes hath him close in its clutches, keepeth him writhing in baleful bonds. There banished for evil the man shall wait for the mighty tribunal, how God of glory shall give him his earnings. Then the soldier kept silent, son of Ecglaf, from boasting and bragging of battle achievements. Since the princes beheld there the hand that depended 'neath the lofty hall timbers by the might of the nobleman, each one before him, the enemy's fingers. Each fingernail strong steel most resembled, the heathen one's handspur, the hero in battle's claw most uncanny, quoth they agreeing that not any excellent edges of brave ones was willing to touch him, the terrible creature's battle hand bloody to bear away from him. End of section 5. Chapter 16. Hrothgar lavishes gifts upon his deliverer. Then straight was ordered that Heorot inside with hands be embellished, a host of them gathered, of men and women, who the wassailing building the guest hall begeared. Gold flashing sparkled webs on the walls then, of wonders a many to each of the heroes that look on such objects. The beautiful building was broken to pieces which all within with irons was fastened, its hinges torn off. Only the roof was whole and uninjured when the horrible creature outlawed for evil off had betaken him, hopeless of living. 'Tis hard to avoid it, whoever will do it, but he doubtless must come to the place awaiting, as Weird hath appointed, soul-bearers, earth-dwellers, earls under heaven, where bound on its bed his body shall slumber when feasting is finished. Full was the time then that the son of Halfdene went to the building. The excellent atheling would eat of the banquet. Ne'er heard I that people with hero band larger bear them better towards their bracelet bestower. The laden with glory stooped to the bench then, their kinsmen companions in plenty were joyful, many a cupful quaffing complacently. Doughty of spirit in the high towering palace, Hrothgar and Hrothulf. Heorot then inside was filled with friendly ones, falsehood and treachery the folk of Scyldings now nowise did practice. Then the offspring of Halfdene offered to Beowulf a golden standard as reward for the victory, a banner embossed, byrnie and helmet. Many men saw then a song-famous weapon borne for the hero. Beowulf drank of the cup in the building, that treasure bestowing he needed not blush for in battle men's presence. Ne'er heard I that many men on the ale bench in friendlier fashion to their fellows presented 4 bright jewels with gold work embellished. Round the roof of the helmet a head garter outside braided with wires, with bosses was furnished, that swords for the battle, fight hardened, might fail boldly to harm him, when the hero proceeded forth against foemen. The defender of earls then commanded that 8 steeds with bridles gold-plated, gleaming, be guided to hallward. Inside the building, on one of them stood then an art-broidered saddle embellished with jewels. 'Twas the sovereign's seat, when the son of King Halfdene was pleased to take part in the play of the edges. The famous one's valor ne'er failed at the front when slain ones were bowing. And to Beowulf granted the prince of the Ingwins power over both, o'er war steeds and weapons, bade him well to enjoy them. In so manly a manner the mighty famed chieftain, hoard ward of heroes, with horses and jewels war storms requited, that none e'er condemneth who willeth to tell truth with full justice. Chapter 17. Banquet continued. The Shope's Song of Finn and Nath. And the atheling of earlmen to each of the heroes, who the ways of the waters went with Beowulf, a costly gift token gave on the mead bench, offered an heirloom, and ordered that that man with gold should be paid for, whom Grendel had erstwhile wickedly slaughtered, as he more of them had done had far-seeking God and the mood of the hero the fate not averted. The Father then governed all of the earth-dwellers, as he ever is doing. Hence insight for all men is everywhere fittest, forethought of spirit. Much he shall suffer of Lethe and of loathsome who long in this present useth the word in this woeful existence. There was music and merriment mingling together, touching Halfdane as leader. The joy-wood was fingered, measures recited, when the singers of Hrothgar on mead bench should mention the merry hall joyance of the kinsmen of Finn when onset surprised them. The half-Danish hero, Nath of the Scyldings, on the field of the Frisians was fated to perish. Sure Hildburg needed not mention approving the fate of the Juteman. Though blameless entirely, when shields were shivered she was shorn of her darlings, of bairns and brothers. They went to their fate with war-spear wounded. Woe was that woman. Not causeless lamented the daughter of Hoke the decree of the wielder when morning light came and she was able 'neath heaven to behold the destruction of brothers and bairns, where the brightest of earth joys she had hitherto had. All of the henchmen of Finn war had off-taken, save a handful remaining, that he nowise was able to offer resistance to the onset of Hengest in the parley of battle, nor the wretched remnant to rescue in war from the Earl of the Atheling, but they offered conditions, another great building to fully make ready, a hall and a high seat, that half they might rule with the sons of the Jutemen, and that Folkwalder's son would day after day the Danemen honour when gifts were giving, and grant of his ring store to Hengest's earl-troop ever so freely, of his gold-plated jewels, as he encouraged the Frisians on the bench of the beer-hall. On both sides they swore then a fast-binding compact. Finn unto Hengest with no thought of revoking vowed then most solemnly the woe-begone remnant well to take care of, his Witan advising, the agreement should no one by words or works weaken and shatter, by artifice ever injure its value. Though reaved of their ruler their ring of as slayer they followed as vassals, fate so requiring. Then if one of the Frisians the quarrel should speak of in tones that were taunting, terrible edges should cut in requital. Accomplished the oath was, and treasure of gold from the hoard was uplifted. The best of the Scylding braves was then fully prepared for the pile. At the pyre was seen clearly the blood-glory Birnie, the boar with his gilding, the iron-hard swine, athelings many fatally wounded. No few had been slaughtered. Hildburg bade then, at the burning of Nath, the bairn of her bosom to bear to the fire, that his body should be burnt and borne to the pyre. The woe-stricken woman wept on his shoulder, in measures lamented, up-mounted the hero. The greatest of dead fires curled to the welkin, on the hill's front crackled, heads were a-melting. Wound doors bursting, while the blood was a-coursing from body bite fierce. The fire devoured them, greediest of spirits, whom war had off-carried from both of the peoples, their bravest were fallen. Chapter 18. The Finn episode continued. The banquet continues. Then the warriors departed to go to their dwellings, reaved of their friends, Friesland to visit, their homes and high city. Hengest continued biding with Finn the blood-tainted winter. Wholly unsundered of fatherland thought he though unable to drive the ring-stemmed vessel o'er the waves of the waters. The wave-deeps were tossing, fought with the wind, winter in ice bonds closed up the currents, till there came to the dwelling a year in its course, as yet it revolveth. Its season propitious one alway regardeth, world-cheering weathers. Then winter was gone, earth's bosom was lovely, the exile would get him, the guest from the palace. On gruesomest vengeance he brooded more eager than on oversea journeys, where onset of anger he was able to accomplish, the bairns of the dukeman therein to remember. Nowise refused he the duties of liegeman when Hun of the Frisians, the battle-sword Leifing, fairest of falchions, friendly did give him. Its edges were famous in folk talk of Jutland, and savage sword fury seized in its clutches bold-mooded Finn where he bode in his palace, when the gruesome grapple of Gulaf and Oslaf had mournfully mentioned. The mere journey over, for sorrows half blamed him, the flickering spirit could not bide in his bosom. Then the building was covered with corpses of foemen, and Finn too was slaughtered, the king with his comrades, and the queen made a prisoner. The troops of the Scyldings bore to their vessels all that the land king had in his palace, such trinkets and treasures they took as, on searching, at Finn's they could find. They ferried to Daneland the excellent woman on oversea journey, led her to their landfolk. The lay was concluded, the gleeman's recital. Shouts again rose then, bench glee resounded. Bearers then offered wine from wonder vats. While Theo advanced then going 'neath gold crown, where the good ones were seated, uncle and nephew. Their peace was yet mutual, true each to the other. And Unferth the spokesman sat at the feet of the lord of the Scyldings. Each trusted his spirit that his mood was courageous, though at fight he had failed in faith to his kinsmen. Said the queen of the Scyldings, "My lord and protector, treasure bestower, take thou this beaker, joyance attend thee, gold friend of heroes, and greet thou the Geat men with gracious responses. So ought one to do. Be kind to the Geat men, in gifts not niggardly. Anear and afar now peace thou enjoyest. Report hath informed me thou'lt have for a bairn the battle-brave hero. Now is Herod cleansed, bring palace gleaming, give while thou mayest many rewards, and bequeath to thy kinsmen kingdom and people, on wending thy way to the wielder's splendor. I know good Hrothulf, that the noble young troopers he'll care for and honor, lord of the Scyldings. If earth joys thou endest earlier than he doth, I reckon that recompense he'll render with kindness our offspring and issue. If that all he remember, what favours of yore, when he yet was an infant, we awarded to him for his worship and pleasure." Then she turned to the bench where her sons were carousing, Hrethik and Hrothmund, and the hero's offspring, the war-young together. There the good one was sitting 'twixt the brothers twain, Beowulf Geatman. End of section 6. Chapter 19. Beowulf receives further honour. A beaker was born him, and biding to quaff it graciously given, and gold that was twisted pleasantly proffered, a pair of arm-jewels, rings and corslet, of collars the greatest I've heard of 'neath heaven. Of heroes not any more splendid from jewels have I heard 'neath the welkin, since Hammer bore off the Brosingmen's necklace, the bracteates and jewels, from the bright shining city, or Menric's cunning craftiness fled from, chose gain everlasting. Geatish Higelac, grandson of Swerting, last had this jewel when tramping 'neath banner the treasure he guarded, the field spoil defended. Fate off-carried him when for deeds of daring he endured tribulation, hate from the Frisians. The ornaments bare he o'er the cup of the currents,
costly gem treasures, mighty folk leader, he fell 'neath his target. The corpse of the king then came into charge of the race of the Frank men, the male shirt and collar. Warm and less noble plundered the fallen, when the fight was finished. The folk of the Geat men the field of the dead held in possession. The choicest of mead halls with cheering resounded, wealth Theo discoursed, the war troop addressed she. This collar enjoy thou, Beowulf worthy, young man in safety, and use thou this armour, gems of the people, and prosper thou fully. Show thyself sturdy, and be to these liegemen mild with instruction. I'll mind thy requital. Thou hast brought it to pass that far and near forever and ever earthmen shall honour thee, even so widely as ocean surroundeth the blustering bluffs. Be, while thou livest, a wealth-blessed atheling. I wish thee most truly jewels and treasure. Be kind to my son, thou living in joyance. Here each of the nobles is true unto other, gentle in spirit, loyal to leader. The liegemen are peaceful, the war troops ready, well drunken heroes, do as I bid ye. Then she went to the settle. There was choicest of banquets, wine drank the heroes. Weird they knew not, destiny cruel, as to many an earlman early it happened, when evening had come and Hrothgar had parted off to his manor, the mighty to slumber. Warriors unnumbered warded the building as erst they did often, the ale settle bared they, 'twas covered all over with beds and pillows. Doomed unto death, down to his slumber bowed then a beer thane. Their battle shields placed they, bright shining targets up by their heads then. O'er the atheling on ale bench 'twas easy to see their battle high helmet, byrnie of ring mail, and mighty war spear. 'Twas the wont of that people to constantly keep them equipped for the battle, at home or marching, in either condition, at seasons just such as necessity ordered as best for their ruler, that people was worthy. Chapter 20 The Mother of Grendel. They sank then to slumber. With sorrow one paid for his evening repose. It was often betide them while Grendel was holding the gold-bedecked palace, ill deeds performing, till his end overtook him, death for his sins. 'Twas seen very clearly, known unto earth folk, that still an avenger outlived the loathed one, long since the sorrow caused by the struggle. The mother of Grendel, devil-shaped woman, her woe ever minded, who was held to inhabit the horrible waters, the cold-flowing currents, after Cain had become a slayer with edges to his one only brother, the son of his sire. He sat out then banished, marked as a murderer, man-joys avoiding, lived in the desert. Thence demons unnumbered fate sent awoke, one of them Grendel, sword-cursed, hateful, who at Heorot met with a man that was watching, waiting the struggle, where a horrid one held him with hand grapple sturdy. Natheless he minded the might of his body, the glorious gift God had allowed him, and folk-ruling father's favour relied on, his help and his comfort. So he conquered the foeman, the hell-spirit humbled. The unhappy departed then, grieved of his joyance, journeying to death haunts, foeman of man. His mother moreover, eager and gloomy, was anxious to go on her mournful mission, mindful of vengeance for the death of her son. She came then to Heorot, where the Armadain earlmen all through the building were lying in slumber. Soon there became then return to the nobles, when the mother of Grendel entered the folk hall. The fear was less grievous by even so much as the vigour of maidens, or strength of woman, by warriors reckoned, when well-carved weapon, worked with the hammer, blade very bloody, brave with its edges, strikes down the boar sign that stands on the helmet. Then the hard-edged weapon was heaved in the building, the brand o'er the benches, broad linens many hand-fast were lifted. For helmet he recked not, for armour net broad, whom terror laid hold of. She went then hastily, outward would get her life for to save, when some one did spy her. Soon she'd grappled one of the athelings fast and firmly, when fen would she hide her. That one to Hrothgar was liefest of heroes in rank of retainer where waters encircle, a mighty shield warrior, whom she murdered at slumber, a broad-famed battle knight. Beowulf was absent, but another apartment was erstwhile devoted to the glory-decked Geatman when gold was distributed. There was hubbub in Heorot, the hand that was famous she grasped in its gore. Grief was renewed then in homes and houses. 'Twas no happy arrangement in both of the quarters to barter and purchase with the lives of their friends. Then the well-aged ruler, the grey-headed war-thane, was woeful in spirit, when his long-trusted liegeman lifeless he knew of, his dearest one gone. Quick from a room was Beowulf brought, brave and triumphant. As day was dawning in the dusk of the morning, went then that earlman, champion noble, came with comrades, where the clever one bided, where the god all-gracious would grant him a respite after the woe he had suffered. The war-worthy hero with a troop of retainers trod then the pavement, the hall-building groaned, till he greeted the wise one, the Earl of the Ingwins, asked if the night had fully refreshed him, as fain he would have it. Chapter 21 Hrothgar's Account of the Monsters. Hrothgar rejoined, Helm of the Scyldings, ask not of giants, grief is renewed to the folk of the Danemen. Dead is Ashera, Jormunlad's brother, older than he, my true-hearted counsellor, trusty adviser, shoulder companion, when fighting in battle our heads we protected, when troopers were clashing, and heroes were dashing. Such an earl should be ever, an erst-worthy atheling, as Ashera proved him. The flickering death-spirit became in Heorot his hand-to-hand murderer. I cannot tell whither the cruel one turned in the carcass exulting, by cramming discovered. The quarrel she wreaked then, that last night agone Grendel thou killedst, in gruesomest manner, with grim holding clutches, since too long he had lessened my liege troop and wasted my folk men so foully. He fell in the battle with forfeit of life, and another has followed, a mighty crime worker, her kinsman avenging, and henceforth hath stablished her hatred unyielding, as it well may appear to many a liegeman who mourneth in spirit the treasure bestower, her heavy heart's sorrow. The hand is now lifeless which availed you in every wish that you cherished. Land people heard I, liegemen, this saying, dwellers in halls, they had seen very often a pair of such mighty march-striding creatures, far-dwelling spirits, holding the moorlands. One of them wore, as well they might notice, the image of woman, the other one wretched in guise of a man wandered in exile, except he was huger than any of earthmen. Earth-dwelling people entitled him Grendel in days of yore. They know not their father, where ill-going spirits any were born him ever before. They guard the wolf-coverts, lands inaccessible, wind-beaten nesses, fearfullest fen-deeps, where a flood from the mountains 'neath mists of the nesses netherward rattles, the stream under earth. Not far is it henceward, measured by mile-lengths, that the mere water standeth, which forest hang over, with frost-whiting covered, a firm-rooted forest, the floods overshadow. There ever at night one an ill-meaning portent a fire-flood may see, 'mong children of men none liveth so wise that wot of the bottom. Though harassed by hounds the heath-stepper seek for, fly to the forest, firm-antlered he-deer, spurred from afar, his spirit he yieldeth, his life on the shore, ere in he will venture to cover his head. Uncanny the places. Thence upward ascendeth the surging of waters, wan to the welkin, when the wind is stirring the weather's unpleasing, till the air groweth gloomy, and the heavens lower. Now is help to be gotten from thee and thee only, the abode thou know'st not, the dangerous place where thou'rt able to meet with the sin-laden hero. Seek if thou darest, For the feud I will fully fee thee with money, with old-time treasure, as erstwhile I did thee, with well-twisted jewels, if away thou shalt get thee. Section 7.
Chapter 22. Beowulf seeks Grendel's mother. Beowulf answered, Ecgtheow's son, "Grieve not, O wise one, for each it is better his friend to avenge than with vehemence wail him. Each of us must the end day abide of his earthly existence, who is able accomplish glory ere death. To battle vain noble, lifeless lying, 'tis at last most fitting. Arise, O king! Quick let us hasten to look at the footprint of the kinsman of Grendel. I promise thee this now, to his place he'll escape not, to embrace of the earth, nor to mountainous forest, nor to depths of the ocean, wherever he wanders. Practise thou now patient endurance of each of thy sorrows, as I hope for thee soothly." Then up sprang the old one, the all-wielder thanked he, ruler almighty, that the man had outspoken. Then for Hrothgar a war-horse was decked with a bridle, curly-maned courser. The clever folk-leader stately proceeded. Stepped then an earl-troop of liden wood-bearers. Her footprints were seen then widely in wood-paths, her way o'er the bottoms, where she far away fared o'er fen country murky, bore away breathless the best of retainers, who pondered with Hrothgar the welfare of country. The son of the athelings then went o'er the stony declivitous cliffs, the close-covered passes, narrow passages, paths unfrequented, nesses abrupt, nicker-haunts many. One of a few of wise-mooded heroes he onward advanced to view the surroundings, till he found unawares woods of the mountain o'er hoar-stones hanging, holtwood and joyful. The water stood under, welling and glory. 'Twas irksome in spirit to all of the Danemen, friends of the Scyldings, to many a liegeman sad to be suffered, a sorrow unlittle to each of the earlmen. When to Ashera's head they came on the cliff, the current was seething with blood and with gore. The troopers gazed on it. The horn anon sang the battle-song ready. The troop were all seated. They saw along the water then many a serpent, mere dragons wondrous trying the waters. Knickers are lying on the cliffs of the nesses, which at noonday full often go on the sea-deeps their sorrowful journey, wild beasts and worm-kind. Away then they hastened, hot-mooded, hateful. They heard the great clamour, the war-trumpet winding. One did the Geat prince sunder from earth-joys, with arrow from bowstring, from his sea-struggle tore him, that the trusty war-missile pierced to his vitals. He proved in the currents less doughty at swimming whom death had off-carried. Soon in the waters the wonderful swimmer was straitened most sorely with sword-pointed boar-spears, pressed in the battle and pulled to the cliff-edge. The liegemen then looked on the loath-fashioned stranger. Beowulf donned then his battle-equipments, cared little for life, inlaid most ample, the hand-woven corslet which could cover his body, must the wave-deeps explore, that war might be powerless to harm the great hero, and the hating one's grasp might not peril his safety. His head was protected by the light-flashing helmet that should mix with the bottoms, trying the eddies, treasure emblazoned, encircled with jewels, as in seasons long past the weaponsmith worked it, wondrously made it, with swine-bodies fashioned it, that thenceforward no longer brand might bite it, and battle's sword hurt it, and that was not least of helpers in prowess, that Hrothgar's spokesman had lent him when straitened. And the hilted hand-sword was Hrunthing entitled, old and most excellent 'mong all of the treasures. Its blade was of iron, blotted with poison, hardened with gore. It failed not in battle any hero under heaven in hand who it brandished, who ventured to take the terrible journeys the battlefield sought. Not the earliest occasion that deeds of daring 'twas destined to 'complish. Ecglaf's kinsman minded not soothly, exulting in strength, what erst he had spoken drunken with wine, when the weapon he lent to a sword hero bolder. Himself did not venture 'neath the strife of the currents his life to endanger, to fame deeds perform; there he forfeited glory, repute for his strength. Not so with the other when he clad in his corslet had equipped him for battle. CHAPTER XXIII. Beowulf's fight with Grendel's mother. Beowulf spake, Ecgtheow's son: "Recall now, O famous kinsman of Halfdene, prince very prudent, now to part I am ready. Gold friend of earlmen, what erst we agreed on, should I lay down my life in lending thee assistance, when my earth joys were over, thou wouldst evermore serve me instead of a father. My faithful thanemen, my trusty retainers, protect thou and care for, fall I in battle. And, Hrothgar beloved, send unto Higelac the high valued jewels thou to me hast allotted. The lord of the Geatmen may perceive from the gold, the Hretling may see it, when he looks on the jewels, that a gem giver found I good over measure, enjoyed him while able. And the ancient heirloom Unferth permit thou, the famed one to have, the heavy sword splendid, the hard-edged weapon. With Hrunting to aid me, I shall gain me glory, or grim death shall take me." The atheling of Geatmen uttered these words and heroic did hasten; not any rejoinder was willing to wait for. The wave current swallowed the doughty in battle. Then a day's length elapsed ere he was able to see the sea at its bottom. Early she found them who 50 of winters the course of the currents kept in her fury, grisly and greedy, that the grim one's dominion some one of men from above was exploring. Forth she did grab them, grappled the warrior with horrible clutches, yet no sooner she injured his body unscathed, the byrnie outguarded, that she proved but powerless to pierce through the armor, the limb mail locked, with loath grabbing fingers. The sea wolf bare then, when bottomward came she, the ring prince homeward, that he after was powerless, he had daring to do it, to deal with his weapons. But many a mere beast tormented him swimming; flood beasts no few with fierce biting tusks did break through his byrnie; the brave one pursued they. The earl then discovered he was down in some cavern where no water whatever anywise harmed him, and the clutch of the current could not unure him, since the roofed hall prevented. Brightness a gleaming firelight saw he, flashing resplendent. The good one saw then the sea bottom's monster, the mighty mere woman. He made a great onset with weapon of battle, his hand not desisted from striking; that war blade struck on her head then a battle song greedy. The stranger perceived then the song would not bite, her life would not injure, but the falchion failed the folk prince when straitened. Erst had it often onsets encountered, oft cloven the helmet, the fated one's armor. 'Twas the first time that ever the excellent jewel had failed of its fame. Firm mooded after, not heedless of valor, but mindful of glory, was Higelac's kinsman. The hero chief angry cast then his carved sword covered with jewels that it lay on the earth, hard and steel pointed. He hoped in his strength, his hand grapple sturdy; so any must act whenever he thinketh to gain him in battle glory unending, and is reckless of living. The lord of the war Geats, he shrank not from battle, seized by the shoulder the mother of Grendel; then mighty in struggle swung he his enemy, since his anger was kindled, that she fell to the floor. With furious grapple she gave him requital early thereafter, and stretched out to grab him. The strongest of warriors faint mooded stumbled, till he fell in his traces, foot going champion. Then she sat on the hall guest and wielded her war knife wide bladed flashing, for her son would take vengeance, her one only bairn. His breast armor woven bode on his shoulder; it guarded his life. the entrance defended 'gainst sword-point and edges. Edged they of sun there had fatally journeyed champion of Geatmen, in the arms of the ocean, had the armor not given close-woven corselet, comfort and succor, and had God most holy not awarded the victory, all-knowing Lord. Easily did heaven's ruler most righteous arrange it with justice, uprose he erect ready for battle. Chapter 24. Beowulf is double conqueror. Then he saw mid the war gems a weapon of victory, an ancient giant sword, of edges a doughty, glory of warriors. Of weapons 'twas choicest, only 'twas larger than any man else was able to bear to the battle encounter, the good and splendid work of the giants. He grasped then the sword hilt, knight of the Scyldings, bold and battle grim, brandished his ring sword, hopeless of living, hotly he smote her, at the fiend woman's neck firmly it grappled, broke through her bone joints, the bill fully pierced her faint cursed body, she fell to the ground then. The hand sword was bloody, the hero exulted. The brand was brilliant, brightly it glimmered, just as from heaven gem-like shineth the torch of the firmament. He glanced long the building, and turned by the wall then. Higelac's vassal, raging and wrathful, raised his battle-sword strong by the handle. The edge was not useless to the hero in battle, but he speedily wished to give Grendel requital for the many assaults he had worked on the West Danes not once, but often, when he slew in slumber the subjects of Hrothgar, swallowed down 15 sleeping retainers of the folk of the Danemen, and fully as many carried away, a horrible prey. He gave him requital, grim raging champion, when he saw on his rest-place weary of conflict Grendel lying, life-joys bereaved. As the battle at Heorot erstwhile had scathed him, his body far bounded, a blow when he suffered, death having seized him, sword-smiting heavy, and he cut off his head then. Early this noticed the clever carles who as comrades of Hrothgar gazed on the sea-deeps, that the surging wave-currents were mightily mingled, the mere flood was gory. Of the good one the grey-haired together held converse, the hoary of head, that they hoped not to see again the atheling ever, that exulting in victory he'd return there to visit the distinguished folk ruler. Then many concluded the mere wolf had killed him. The 9th hour came then, from the ness edge departed the bold-mooded Scyldings. The gold friend of heroes homeward betook him. The strangers sat down then, soul-sick, sorrowful, the sea-waves regarding. They wished and yet weened not their well-loved friend lord to see any more. The sword-blade began then, the blood having touched it, contracting and shrivelling with battle icicles. 'Twas a wonderful marvel that it melted entirely, likest to ice when the Father unbindeth the bond of the frost and unwindeth the wave-bands. He who wieldeth dominion of times and of tides, a truth-firm creator. Nor took he of jewels more in the dwelling, lord of the Weders, though they lay all around him, than the head and the handle handsome with jewels. The brand early melted, burnt was the weapon. So hot was the blood, the strange spirit poisonous, that in it did perish. He early swam off then who had bided in combat the carnage of haters, went up through the ocean, the eddies were cleansed, the spacious expanses, when the spirit from far land his life put aside and this short-lived existence. The seamen's defender came swimming to land then doughty of spirit, rejoiced in his sea-gift, the bulky burden which he bore in his keeping. The excellent vassals advanced then to meet him, to God they were grateful, were glad in their chieftain, that to see him safe and sound was granted them. From the high-minded hero then helmet and byrnie was speedily loosened. The ocean was putrid, the water 'neath welkin weltered with gore. Forth did they fare then, their footsteps retracing, merry and mirthful, measured the earth-way, the highway familiar. Men very daring bare then the head from the sea-cliff, burdening each of the earl-men, excellent valiant, 4 of them had to carry with labour the head of Grendel to the high towering gold hall upstuck on the spear, till 14 most valiant and battle-brave Geatmen came there going straight to the palace. The prince of the people measured the mead-ways, their mood-brave companion. The atheling of earlmen entered the building, deed a valiant man, adorned with distinction, doughty shield warrior, to address King Hrothgar. Then hung by the hair, the head of Grendel was borne to the building, where beer thanes were drinking, loth before earlmen and eke for the lady. The warriors beheld then a wonderful sight. End of section 8. Chapter 25. Beowulf brings his trophies. Hrothgar's gratitude. Beowulf spake, offspring of Ecgtheow: "Lo, we blithely have brought thee, bairn of Halfdene, prince of the Scyldings, these presents from ocean which thine eye looketh on for an emblem of glory. I came off alive from this, narrowly 'scaping. In war 'neath the water the work with great pains I performed, and the fight had been finished quite nearly had God not defended me. I failed in the battle aught to accomplish, aided by Hrunthing, though that weapon was worthy, but the wielder of earth folk gave me willingly to see on the wall a heavy old hand sword hanging in splendour. He guided most often the lorn and the friendless, that I swung as a weapon. The wards of the house then I killed in the conflict, when occasion was given me. Then the battle sword burned, the brand that was lifted, as the blood current sprang, hottest of war sweats. Seizing the hilt, from my foes I off bore it. I avenged as I ought to their acts of malignity, the murder of Danemen. I then make thee this promise: thou'lt be able in Heorot careless to slumber with thy throng of heroes and the thanes of thy people every and each, of greater and lesser, and thou needest not fear for them from the self-same direction as thou formerly fearedst, O folk-lord of Scyldings, Ende for earlmen." To this age-hoary man, then, the grey-haired chieftain, the gold-fashioned sword-hilt, old work of giants, was thereupon given. Since the fall of the fiends, it fell to the keeping of the wielder of Danemen, the wondersmith's labour, and the bad-mooded being abandoned this world then, opponent of God, victim of murder, and also his mother. It went to the keeping of the best of the world-kings, where waters encircle, who the Scot divided in Scylding dominion. Hrothgar discoursed, the hilt he regarded, the ancient heirloom where an old-time contention's beginning was graven. The gurgling currents, the floods slew thereafter the race of the giants. They had proved themselves daring. That people was lost to the Lord everlasting. Through lash of the billows the Father gave them final requital. So in letters of rune on the clasp of the handle gleaming and golden, 'twas graven exactly, set forth and said, whom that sword had been made for, finest of irons, who first it was wrought for, wreathed at its handle and gleaming with serpents. The wise one then said, silent they all were, son of old Halfdene: he may say unrefuted who performs mid the folk-men fairness and truth, the hoary old ruler remembers the past. That better by birth is this bairn of the nobles. Thy fame is extended through far-away countries, good friend Beowulf, o'er all of the races. Thou holdest all firmly, hero-like strength with prudence of spirit. I'll prove myself grateful as before we agreed on. Thou granted for long shalt become a great comfort to kinsmen and comrades, a help unto heroes. Heremode became not such to the Scyldings, successors of Ecgwalla. He grew not to please them, but grievous destruction and diresome death-woes to Danemen attracted. He slew in anger his table companions, trustworthy counsellors, till he turned off lonely from world joys away,
wide famous ruler. Though high ruling heaven in hero strength raised him, in might exalted him, o'er men of all nations, made him supreme, yet a murderous spirit grew in his bosom. He gave then no ring gems to the Danes after custom, endured he unjoyful standing the straits from strife that was raging, long some folk's sorrow. Learn then from this, lay hold of virtue. Though laden with winters, I have sung thee these measures. 'Tis a marvel to tell it, how all-ruling God from greatness of spirit giveth wisdom to children of men, manor and earlship. All things he ruleth. He often permitted the mood thought of man of the illustrious lineage to lean to possessions, allows him earthly delights at his manor, a high burg of heroes to hold in his keeping, maketh portions of earth-folk hear him, and a wide-reaching kingdom so that, wisdom failing him, he himself is unable to reckon its boundaries. He liveth in luxury, little debars him, nor sickness nor age, no treachery sorrow becloudeth his spirit, conflict nowhere, no sword-hate apparent, but all of the world doth wend as he wisheth. The worse he knoweth not, till arrant arrogance inward pervading waxeth and springeth, when the warder is sleeping, the guard of the soul, with sorrows encompassed. Too sound is his slumber, the slayer is near him, who with bow and arrow aimeth in malice. Chapter 26. Hrothgar moralizes, rest after labour. Then bruised in his bosom he with bitter toothed missile is hurt 'neath his helmet. From harmful pollution he is powerless to shield him by the wonderful mandates of the loath cursed spirit. What too long he hath holden him seemeth too small. Savage he hoardeth, nor boastfully giveth gold-plated rings. The fate of the future flouts and forgetteth, since God had erst given him greatness no little, wielder of glory. His end day anear, it afterward happens, that the bodily dwelling fleetingly fadeth, falls into ruins. Another lays hold who doleth the ornaments, the nobleman's jewels, nothing lamenting, heedeth no terror. O Beowulf dear, best of the heroes, from bale strife defend thee, and choose thee the better, counsels eternal. Beware of arrogance, world-famous champion, but a little while lasts thy life's vigor's fullness. 'Twill after hap early, that illness or sword edge shall part thee from strength, or the grasp of the fire, or the wave of the current, or clutch of the edges, or the flight of the war-spear, or age with its horrors, or thine eyes bright flashing shall fade into darkness. 'Twill happen full early, excellent hero, that death shall subdue thee. So the Danes a half-century I held under heaven, helped them in struggles 'gainst many a race in middle earth's regions, with ash-wooden edges, that enemies none on earth molested me. Lo, offsetting change now came to my manor, grief after joyance, when Grendel became my constant visitor, inveterate hater. I from that malice continually travailed with trouble no little. Thanks be to God that I gained in my lifetime to the Lord everlasting, to look on the gory head with mine eyes, after long-lasting sorrow. Go to the bench now, battle adorned joy in the feasting. Of duels in common we'll meet with many when morning approacheth. The Geatman was gladsome, ganged he immediately to go to the bench, as the clever one bade him. Then again as before were the famous for prowess, hall inhabiters, handsomely banqueted, feasted anew. The night veil fell then, dark o'er the warriors. The courtiers rose then. The grey-haired was anxious to go to his slumbers, the hoary old Scylding. Hankered the Geatman, the champion doubtly, greatly to rest him. An earlman early outward did lead him, fagged from his faring, from far country springing, who for etiquette's sake all of a liegeman's needs regarded, such as seamen at that time were bounden to feel. The big-hearted rested. The building up-towered, spacious and gilded, the guest within slumbered, till the sable-clad raven blithely foreboded the beacon of heaven. Then the bright shining sun o'er the bottoms came going. The warriors hastened. The heads of the peoples were ready to go again to their peoples. The high-mooded farer would far away thenceward look for his vessel. The valiant one bade then, offspring of Ecglaf, off to bear Hrunting, to take his weapon, his well-beloved iron. He thanked him for the gift, saying good he accounted the war-friend and mighty, nor chided he with words then the blade of the brand. 'Twas a brave-mooded hero. When the warriors were ready, arrayed in their trappings, the atheling, dear to the Dane men advanced then on to the dais where the other was sitting. Grim-mooded hero greeted King Hrothgar. Chapter 27. Sorrow at Parting. Beowulf spake, Ecgtheow's offspring. We men of the water wish to declare now, fared from far lands, were firmly determined to seek King Higelac. Here we have fitly been welcomed and feasted, as heart would desire it. Good was the greeting. If greater affection I am anywise able ever on earth to gain at thy hands, ruler of heroes, than yet I have done, I shall quickly be ready for combat and conflict. O' the course of the waters learn I that neighbours alarm thee with terror, as haters did whilom. I hither will bring thee for help unto heroes henchmen by thousands. I know as to Higelac, the lord of the Geatmen, though young in years, he'll permit me, by words and by works, ward of the people, fully to furnish thee forces and bear thee my lance to relieve thee, if liegemen shall fail thee, and help of my hand-strength. If Hrethvic be treating, bairn of the king, at the court of the Geatmen, he thereat may find him friends in abundance. Far-away countries he were better to seek for who trusts in himself. Hrothgar discoursed then, making rejoinder. These words thou hast uttered all-knowing God hath given thy spirit. Ne'er heard I an earlman thus early in life more clever in speaking. Thou'rt cautious of spirit, mighty of muscle, in mouth answers prudent. I count on the hope that, happen it ever that missile shall rob thee of Hrethel's descendant, edge-horrid battle, and illness or weapon deprive thee of prince, of people's protector, and life thou yet holdest, the sea-Geats will never find a more fitting folk-lord to choose them, gem-ward of heroes, than thou mightest prove thee, if the kingdom of kinsmen thou carest to govern. Thy mood-spirit likes me the longer the better, Beowulf dear. Thou hast brought it to pass that to both these peoples peace shall be common, to Geat-folk and Danemen the strife be suspended, the secret assailing thy suffered in your years, and also that jewels be shared while I govern the wide-stretching kingdom, and that many shall visit others o'er the ocean with excellent gift-gems. The ring-adorned bark shall bring o'er the currents presents and love-gifts. This people I know toward foeman and friend firmly established, after ancient etiquette everywise blameless. Then the warden of earlmen gave him still farther, kinsman of Halfdene, a dozen of jewels, bade him safely seek with the presents his well-beloved people, early returning. Then the noble-born king kissed the distinguished, dear-loved liegeman. The Dane prince saluted him, and clasped his neck. Tears from him fell, from the grey-headed man. He two things expected, aged and reverend, but rather the second, that bold in counsel they'd meet thereafter. The man was so dear that he failed to suppress the emotions that moved him, but in mood fetters fastened the long-famous hero longeth in secret deep in his spirit for the dear-beloved man though not a blood-kinsman. Beowulf thenceward, gold-splendid warrior, walked o'er the meadows exulting in treasure. The sea-going vessel, riding at anchor awaited its owner. As they passed on their way then, The present of Hrothgar was frequently referred to, a folk king indeed that every way blameless, till age did debar him the joys of his might, which hath many oft injured. Section 10. Chapter 28. The Homeward Journey. The Two Queens. Then the band of very valiant retainers came to the current. They were clad all in armour, in link-woven byrnies. The land warder noticed the return of the earlmen, as he erstwhile had seen them. Nowise with insult he greeted the strangers from the naze of the cliff, but rode on to meet them. Said the bright-armoured visitors vesselward-travelled welcome to Weders. The wide-bottomed craft then lay on the sand laden with armour, with horses and jewels, the ring-stemmed sailor. The mast uptowered o'er the treasure of Hrothgar. To the boat-ward a gold-bound brand he presented, that he was afterwise honoured on the ale-bench more highly as the heirloom's owner. Set he out on his vessel, to drive on the deep Dane country left he. Along by the mast then a sea-garment fluttered, a rope-fastened sail. The sea-boat resounded. The wind o'er the waters the wave-floater nowise kept from its journey. The sea-goer travelled, the foamy-necked floated forth o'er the currents, the well-fashioned vessel o'er the waves of the ocean, till they came within sight of the cliffs of the Geatmen, the well-known headlands. The wave-goer hastened, driven by breezes, stood on the shore. Prompt at the ocean the port-ward was ready, who long in the past outlooked in the distance at water's edge waiting well-loved heroes. He bound to the bank then the broad-bottomed vessel fast in its fetters, lest the force of the waters should be able to injure the ocean-ward winsome. Bade he up then take the treasure of princes, plate gold and fretwork. Not far was it thence to go off in search of the giver of jewels. Hrethel's son Higelac at home there remaineth, himself with his comrades close to the sea-coast. The building was splendid, the king heroic, great in his hall. Hygd very young was, fine-mooded, clever, though few were the winters that the daughter of Hareth had dwelt in the borough. But she nowise was cringing nor niggard of presents, of ornaments rare, to the race of the Geatmen. Thraitho nursed anger, excellent folk-queen, hot-burning hatred. No hero whatever 'mong household companions, her husband excepted, dared to adventure to look at the woman with eyes in the daytime, but he knew that death-chains hand-wreathed were wrought him. Early thereafter, when the hand-strife was over, edges were ready. That fierce raging sword-point had to force a decision, murder-bale show. Such no womanly custom for a lady to practise, though lovely her person, that a weaver of peace, on pretence of anger, a beloved liegeman of life should deprive. Soothly this hindered Hemming's kinsman. Other ale-drinking earlmen asserted that fearful folk sorrows fewer she wrought them, treacherous doings, since first she was given adorned with gold to the war-hero youthful, for her origin honoured, when Offa's great palace o'er the fallow flood by her father's instructions she sought on her journey, where she afterwards fully, famed for her virtue, her fate on the king's seat enjoyed in her lifetime. Love did she hold with the ruler of heroes, the best, it is told me, of all the earthmen that oceans encompass, of earl-kindreds endless. Hence Offa was famous far and widely, by gifts and by battles, spear-valiant hero. The home of his fathers he governed with wisdom, whence Eomer did issue for help unto heroes. Hemming's kinsman, grandson of Garmund, great in encounters. Chapter 29. Beowulf and Higelac. Then the brave one departed, his band along with him, seeking the seashore, the sea marches treading, the wide-stretching shores. The world-candle glimmered, the sun from the southward. They proceeded then onward, early arriving where they heard that the troop-lord, Ongentheo's slayer, excellent youthful folk prince and warrior was distributing jewels close in his castle. The coming of Beowulf was announced in a message quickly to Higelac, at the folk troops defender forth to the palace the linden companion alive was advancing, secure from the combat courtward a-going. The building was early inward made ready for the foot-going guests as the good one had ordered. He sat by the man then who had lived through the struggle, kinsman by kinsman, when the king of the people had in lordly language saluted the dear one, in words that were formal. The daughter of Hareth coursed through the building, carrying mead cups; she loved the retainers, tended the beakers to the high-minded Geatmen. Higelac 'gan then pleasantly plying his companion with questions in the high-towering palace. A curious interest tormented his spirit, what meaning to see in the sea-Geats' adventures. "Beowulf worthy, how throve your journeying, when thou thoughtest suddenly Far o'er the salt streams to seek and encounter a battle at Heorot? Hast bettered for Hrothgar, the famous folk leader, his far published sorrows any at all? In agony billows I mused upon torture, distrusted the journey of the beloved liegeman. I long time did pray thee by no means to seek out the murderous spirit, to suffer the South Danes themselves to decide on grappling with Grendel. To God I am thankful to be suffered to see thee safe from thy journey." Beowulf answered, bairn of old Ecgtheow, "'Tis hidden from no means, Higelac chieftain, From many of men, the meeting so famous, What mournful moments of me and of Grendel Were passed in the place where he pressing affliction On the victory Scyldings scatefully brought. Anguish forever. That all I avenged, so that any under heaven Of the kinsmen of Grendel needeth not boast Of that cry in the morning, who longest liveth Of the loth-going kindred, encompassed by moorland. I came in my journey to the royal ring hall, Hrothgar to greet there. Soon did the famous Scion of Healfdene, when he understood fully The spirit that led me, assign me a seat with the son of his bosom. The troop was in joyance; mead glee greater 'Neath arch of the ether not ever beheld I mid hall building holders. The highly famed queen, peace-tide peoples, Oft passed through the building, cheered the young troopers. She oft tendered a hero a beautiful ring-band, ere she went to her sitting. Oft the daughter of Hrothgar in view of the courtiers To the earl at the end the ale-vessel carried, Whom free aware I heard then hall sitter's title. When nail-adorned jewels she gave to the heroes, Gold-bedecked youthful, to the glad son of Froda Her faith has been plighted. The friend of the Scyldings, The guard of the kingdom, hath given his sanction, And counts it a vantage, for a part of the quarrels, A portion of hatred, to pay with the woman. Somewhere not rarely when the ruler has fallen The life-taking lance relaxeth its fury For a brief breathing spell, though the bride be charming. CHAPTER 30 Beowulf narrates his adventures to Higelac. It may well discomfort the prince of the Heathobards And each of the thane-men of earls that attend him, When he goes to the building escorting the woman That a noble-born Daneman the night should be feasting. There gleam on his person the leavings of elders Hard and ring-bright, Heathobards' treasure While they wielded their arms till they misled to the battle Their own dear lives and beloved companions. He saith at the banquet who the collar beholdeth, An ancient ash warrior who earlmen's destruction Clearly recalleth, cruel to his spirit, Sadly beginneth sounding the youthful Thane-champion spirit through the thoughts of his bosom, War-grief to waken, and this world answer speaketh: "Art thou able, my friend, to know when thou seest it The brand which thy father bare to the conflict In his latest adventure, 'neath visor of helmet, The dearly loved iron, where Danemen did slay him, And brave-mooded Scyldings, on the fall of the heroes, When vengeance was sleeping, the slaughter-place wielded? E'en now some man of the murderer's progeny Exulting in ornaments enters the building, Boasts of his blood shedding, off beareth the jewel Which thou shouldst wholly hold in possession. So he urgeth and mindeth on every occasion With woe-bringing words, till waxeth the season When the woman's thane for the works of his father, The bill having bitten, blood glory seepeth, Fated to perish. The other one thenceward 'scapeth alive, The land knoweth thoroughly. Then the oaths of the earlmen on each side are broken, When rancors unresting are raging in Ingeld, And his wife love waxeth less warm after sorrow. So the Heathobard's favour not faithful I reckon, Their part in the treaty not true to the Danemen, Their friendship not fast. I further shall tell thee more about Grendel, That thou fully mayst hear, ornament giver, What afterward came from the hand-rush of heroes. When heaven's bright jewel o'er earth fields had gilded, The stranger came raging, the horrible night fiend, Us for to visit, where wholly unharmed The hall we were guarding. To Honshio happened a hopeless contention, Death to the doomed one, dead he fell foremost, Girded war champion. To him Grendel became then, to the vassal distinguished, A tooth-weaponed murderer, the well-beloved henchman's Body all swallowed. Not the earlier off empty of hand Did the bloody-toothed murderer, mindful of evils, Wish to escape from the gold-giver's palace, But sturdy of strength he strove to outdo me, Hand ready grappled. A glove was suspended spacious and wondrous, In art fetters fashioned, Which was fashioned entirely by touch of the craftsman From the dragon's skin by the devil's devices. He down in its depths would do me unsadly One among many, deed do raging, Though sinless he saw me; not so could it happen When I in my anger upright did stand. 'Tis too long to recount how requital I furnished For every evil to the earlmen's destroyer. 'Twas there, my prince, that I proudly distinguished Thy land with my labours. He left and retreated, He lived his life a little while longer, Yet his right hand guarded his footstep in Heorot, And sad-mooded thence to the sea-bottom fell he, Mournful in mind. For the might rush of battle The friend of the shieldings, with gold that was plated, With ornaments many, much requited me When daylight had dawned, and down to the banquet We had sat us together, there was chanting and joyance. The age-stricken Scylding asked many questions And of old times related; oft light-ringing harp-strings Joy-telling were touched by the brave one. Now he uttered measures, mourning and truthful; Then the large-hearted land king a legend of wonder Truthfully told us. Now troubled with years the age-hoary warrior Afterward began to mourn for the might That marked him in youth days. His breast within boiled, When burdened with winters much he remembered. From morning till night then we joyed us therein As etiquette suffered, till the second night season Came unto earth-folk. Then early thereafter The mother of Grendel was ready for vengeance. Wretched she journeyed; her son had death ravished, The wrath of the Geatmen. The horrible woman avenged her offspring, And with mighty main-strength murdered a hero. There the spirit of Ashera, aged adviser, Was ready to vanish; nor when morn had lightened Were they anywise suffered to consume him with fire, Folk of the Danemen, the death-weakened hero, Nor the beloved liegeman to lay on the pyre. She the corpse had off carried In the clutch of the foemen 'neath mountain brook's flood. To Hrothgar 'twas saddest of pains that ever Had preyed on the chieftain. By the life of thee The land prince then me besought very sadly, In sea-current's eddies to display my prowess, To prevail my safety, might deeds accomplish. Much did he promise. I found then the famous flood-current's cruel, Horrible depth-warder; and while unto us Two hand was in common, the currents were seething With gore that was clotted, and Grendel's fierce mother's Head I off carried in the hall at the bottom With huge reaching sword edge. Hardly I wrested my life from her clutches. Not doomed was I then, but the warden of earlmen afterward gave me jewels in quantity, kinsman of Halfdene. Section 10. Chapter 31. Gift-giving is mutual. So the beloved land prince lived in decorum. I'd missed no rewards, no meeds of my prowess, but he gave me jewels, regarding my wishes, Halfdene his bairn. I'll bring them to thee then, atheling of earlmen, offer them gladly. And still unto thee is all my affection. But few of my folk kin find I surviving but thee, dear Higelac. Bade he in then to carry the boar image, banner, battle-high helmet, iron-grey armour, the excellent weapon, in song measures said. This suit for the battle Hrothgar presented me, bade me expressly, wise-mooded atheling, therefore to tell thee the whole of its history, said King Hroegar owned it, Dane prince for long. Yet he wished not to give then the mail to his son, though dearly he loved him, Hereward the hardy, hold all in joyance. I heard that there followed hard on the jewels 2 braces of stallions of striking resemblance, dappled in yellow. He granted him usance of horses and treasures. So a kinsman should bear him, no web of treachery weave for another, nor by cunning craftiness cause the destruction of trusty companion. Most precious to Higelac, the bold one in battle, was the bairn of his sister, and each unto other mindful of favours. I am told that to Hygd he proffered the necklace, wonder gem rare that Wälchtheo gave him, the troop leader's daughter, a trio of horses slender and saddle bright. Soon did the jewel embellish her bosom, when the beer feast was over. So Ecgtheow's bairn brave did prove him, war-famous man, by deeds that were valiant. He lived in honour, beloved companions slew not carousing. His mood was not cruel, but by hand-strength hugest of heroes then living the brave one retained the bountiful gift that the Lord had allowed him. Long was he wretched, so that sons of the Geatmen accounted him worthless, and the lord of the liegemen loth was to do him mickle of honour, when mead cups were passing. They fully believed him idle and sluggish, an indolent atheling. To the honour-blessed man there came requital for the cuts he had suffered. The folk troops defender bade fetch to the building the heirloom of Hraethel, embellished with gold, so the brave one enjoined it. There was jewel no richer in the form of a weapon 'mong Geats of that era. In Beowulf's keeping he placed it and gave him 7 of thousands, manor and lordship. Common to both was land 'mong the people, estate and inherited rights and possessions. To the second one specially spacious dominions, to the one who was better. It afterward happened in days that followed, befell the battle-thanes, after Higelac's death, and when Hardred was murdered, with weapons of warfare 'neath well-covered targets, when valiant battle-men in victor bands sought him, war-shifling heroes harassed the nephew of Haeric in battle. To Beowulf's keeping turned there in time extensive dominions. He fittingly ruled them a 50 of winters, he a man-ruler wise was, man-award old, till a certain one 'gan, on gloom-darkening nights, a dragon to govern, who guarded a treasure, a high-rising stone-cliff on heath that was greyish, a path 'neath it lay, unknown unto mortals. Some one of earthmen entered the mountain, the heathenish horde laid hold of with ardour. Chapter 32. The Horde and the Dragon. He sought of himself who sorely did harm him, but, for need very pressing, the servant of one of the sons of the heroes
hate blows evaded. Seeking for shelter and the sin-driven warrior took refuge within there. He early looked in it, when the onset surprised him. He a gem vessel saw there, many of such like ancient ornaments in the earth cave were lying, as in days of yore some one of men of illustrious lineage, as a legacy monstrous, there had secreted them, careful and thoughtful, dear valued jewels. Death had oft snatched them, in the days of the past, and the one man moreover of the flower of the folk who fared there the longest, was fain to defer it, friend mourning warder, a little longer to be left in enjoyment of long-lasting treasure. A barrow all ready stood on the plain the steam-currents nigh to, new by the ness edge, uneath of approaching. The keeper of rings carried within a ponderous deal of the treasure of nobles. Of gold that was beaten, briefly he spake then: "Hold thou, O earth, now heroes no more may, the earnings of earlmen. Lo, erst in thy bosom worthy men won them, war death hath ravished. Perilous life-bale, all my warriors, liegemen beloved, who this life have forsaken, who haul pleasures sore. No sword-bearer have I, and no one to burnish the gold-plated vessel, the high-valued beaker. My heroes are vanished. The hardy helmet behung with gilding shall be reaved of its riches. The ring-cleansers slumber who were charged to have ready visors for battle. And the byrnie that bided in battle encounter o'er breaking of war-shields the bite of the edges moulds with the hero. The ring-twisted armour, its lord being lifeless, no longer may journey hanging by heroes. Harp-joy is vanished, the rapture of glee-wood, no excellent falcon swoops through the building, no swift-footed charger grindeth the gravel. A grievous destruction no few of the world-folk widely hath scattered. So woeful of spirit, one after all lamented mournfully, moaning in sadness by day and by night, till death with its billows dashed on his spirit. Then the ancient dusk-scather found the great treasure standing all open. He who flaming and fiery flies to the barrows, naked war-dragon, nightly escapeth encompassed with fire. Men under heaven widely beheld him. 'Tis said that he looks for the hoard in the earth, where old he is guarding the heathenish treasure. He'll be nowise the better. So 300 winters the waster of peoples held upon earth that excellent hoard-hall, till the forementioned earl-man angered him bitterly. The beat-plated beaker he bare to his chieftain and fullest remission for all his remissness begged of his liege-lord. Then the hoard was discovered, the treasure was taken, his petition was granted, the lorn-mooded liegeman. His lord regarded the old work of earth-folk, 'twas the earliest occasion. When the dragon awoke, the strife was renewed there. He snuffed long the stone then, stout-hearted found he the footprint of foeman. Too far had he gone with cunning craftiness close to the head of the fire-spewing dragon. So undoomed he may escape from anguish and exile with ease who possesseth the favour of heaven. The hoard-warden eagerly searched o'er the ground then, would meet with the person that caused him sorrow while in slumber reclining. Gleaming and wild he oft went round the cavern, all of it outward. Not any of earth-men was seen in that desert. Yet he joyed in the battle, rejoiced in the conflict. Oft he turned to the barrow, sought for the gem-cup. This he soon perceived then that some man or other had discovered the gold, the famous folk treasure. Not fain did the hoard-ward wait until evening. Then the ward of the barrow was angry in spirit. The loathed one wished to pay for the dear-valued drink-cup with fire. Then the day was done as the dragon would have it. He no longer would wait on the wall, but departed fire-impelled, flaming. Fearful the start was to earls in the land, as it early thereafter to their giver of gold was grievously ended. Chapter 33. Brave though aged. Reminiscences. The stranger began then to vomit forth fire, to burn the great manor. The blaze then glimmered for anguish to earlmen. Not anything living was the hateful ergur willing to leave there. The war of the worm widely was noticed, the feud of the foemen afar and near, how the enemy injured the earls of the Geatmen, harried with hatred. Back he hied to the treasure, to the well-hidden cavern ere the coming of daylight. He had circled with fire the folk of those regions, with brand and burning. In the barrow he trusted, in the wall and his war might, the weening deceived him. Then straight was the horror to Beowulf published, early forsooth, that his own native homestead, the best of buildings, was burning and melting, gift-seat of Geatmen. 'Twas grief to the spirit of the good-mooded hero, the greatest of sorrows. The wise one weened then that wielding his kingdom 'gainst the ancient commandments he had bitterly angered the Lord everlasting. With lorn meditations his bosom welled inward, as was nowise his custom. The fire-spewing dragon fully had wasted the fastness of warriors, the water-land outward, the manor with fire. The folk-ruling hero, prince of the Weders, was planning to wreak him. The war-men's defender bade them to make him earlmen's atheling an excellent war-shield, wholly of iron. Fully he knew then that wood from the forest was helpless to aid him, shield against fire. The long-worthy ruler must live the last of his limited earth-days, of life in the world and the worm along with him, though he long had been holding hoard wealth and plenty. Then the ring-prince disdained to seek with a war-band, with army extensive, the air-going ranger. He felt no fear of the foeman's assaults, and he counted for little the might of the dragon, his power and prowess. For previously dared he a heap of hostility, hazarded dangers, war-thane, when Hrothgar's palace he cleansed, conquering combatant, clutched in the battle the kinsman of Grendel, of kindred detested. 'Twas of hand-fights not least where Higelac was slaughtered, when the king of the Geatmen with clashings of battle, friend lord of folks in Frisian dominions, offspring of Hroethel perished through sword-drink, with battle-swords beaten. Thence Beowulf came then, on self-help relying, swam through the waters. He bare on his arm, lone going, 30 outfits of armor, when the ocean he mounted. The Hetwars by no means had need to be boastful of their fighting afoot, who forward to meet him carried their war-shields. Not many returned from the brave-mooded battle-night back to their homesteads. Ecgtheows bairn o'er the bight courses swam then, lone goer lorn to his land-folk returning, where hid to him tendered treasure and kingdom, rings and dominion. Her son she not trusted, to be able to keep the kingdom devised him 'gainst alien races, on the death of King Higelac. Yet the sad ones succeeded not in persuading the atheling in any way ever to act as a suzerain to Hardred, or promise to govern the kingdom. Yet with friendly counsel in the folk he sustained him, gracious with honor, till he grew to be older, wielded the Weders. Wide-fleeting outlaws, Ochthair's sons, sought him o'er the waters. They had stirred a revolt 'gainst the helm of the Sheaflings, the best of the sea-kings, who in Swedish dominions distributed treasure, distinguished folk leader. 'Twas the end of his earth-days, injury fatal by swing of the sword he received as a greeting, offspring of Higelac, Ongentheows bairn later departed to visit his homestead. When Hardred was dead, let Beowulf rule them, govern the Geatmen, good was that folk king. End of section 11. Chapter 34. Beowulf seeks the dragon. Beowulf's reminiscences. He planned requital for the folk leader's ruin in days thereafter,
To Eadgils the wretched becoming an enemy. Ohthere's son then went with a war troop o'er the wide-stretching currents with warriors and weapons. With woe journeys cold he after avenged him, the king's life he took. So he came off uninjured from all of his battles, perilous fights, offspring of Ecgtheow, from his deeds of daring, till that day most momentous when he fate-driven fared to fight with the dragon. With 11 companions the prince of the Geatmen went lowering with fury to look at the fire-drake. Inquiring he'd found how the feud had arisen, hate to his heroes. The highly famed gem vessel was brought to his keeping through the hand of th' informer, that in the throng was 13th of heroes, that caused the beginning of conflict so bitter, captive and wretched, must sad-mooded thenceward point out the place. He passed then unwillingly to the spot where he knew of the notable cavern, the cave under earth, not far from the ocean. The anger of eddies, which inward was full of jewels and wires. A warder uncanny, warrior weaponed, warded the treasure. Old under earth, no easy possession for any of earth folk access to get to. Then the battle-brave atheling sat on the naze edge, while the gold friend of Geatmen gracious saluted his fireside companions. Woe was his spirit, death-boding, wavering, weird very near him who must seize the old hero, his sole treasure look for, dragging aloof his life from his body. Not flesh hidden long was the folk-leader's spirit. Beowulf spake, Ecgtheow's son. I survived in my youth days many a conflict, hours of onset, that all I remember. I was 7 winters old when the jewel prince took me, high lord of heroes, at the hands of my father. Hraefl, the hero king, had me in keeping, gave me treasure and feasting, our kinship remembered. Not ever was I any less dear to him knight in the boroughs than the bairns of his household, Herebald and Hathkin, and he alack mine. To the eldest unjustly by acts of a kinsman was murder-bed strewn, since him Hathkin from horn bow his sheltering chieftain shot with an arrow, erred in his aim and injured his kinsman, one brother the other, with blood-sprinkled spear. 'Twas a feeless fight, finished in malice, sad to his spirit. The folk-prince however had to part from existence with vengeance untaken, so to hoar-headed hero 'tis heavily crushing to live to see his son as he rideth young on the gallows. Then measures he chanteth a song of sorrow when his son is hanging for the raven's delight, and aged and hoary he is unable to offer any assistance. Every morning his offspring's departure is constant recalled. He cares not to wait for the birth of an heir in his borough enclosures, since that one through death-pain the deeds hath experienced. He heart-grieved beholds in the house of his son the wine-building wasted, the wind-lodging places reaved of their roaring, the riders are sleeping, the knight's in the grave, there's no sound of the harp-wood, joy in the yards as of yore were familiar. Chapter 35 Reminiscences continued. Beowulf's last battle. He seeks then his chamber, singeth the woe-song one for the other, all too extensive seemed homesteads and plains. So the helm of the wedders, mindful of Herebald heart-sorrow carried, stirred with emotion, nowise was able to wreak his ruin on the ruthless destroyer. He was unable to follow the warrior with hatred, with deeds that were direful, though dear he not held him. Then pressed by the pang this pain occasioned him, he gave up glee, godlight elected. He left to his sons, as the man that is rich does, his land and fortress, when from life he departed. Then was crime and hostility 'twixt Swedes and Geatmen, O'er the wide-stretching water warring was mutual, burdensome hatred, when Hrethelr had perished, and Ongentheow's offspring were active and valiant, wished not to hold to peace over sea, but round Hreosna Berch often accomplished cruelest massacre. This my kinsman avenged, the feud and fury, as 'tis found on inquiry, though one of them paid it with forfeit of life joys, with price that was hard. The struggle became then fatal to Hæthcyn, lord of the Geatmen. Then I heard that at morning one brother the other with edges of irons egged on to murder, where Ongentheow maketh onset of Eofor. The helmet crashed, the hoary head shifling sword smitten fell. His hand then remembered feud hate sufficient, refused not the death blow. The gems that he gave me with jewel bright sword I quitted in contest, as occasion was offered. Land he allowed me, life joy at homestead, manor to live on. Little he needed from Gepids or Danes or in Sweden to look for trooper less true, with treasure to buy him. 'Mong foot soldiers ever in front I would hie me, alone in the vanguard, and evermore gladly warfare shall wage, while this weapon endureth that late and early often did serve me, when I proved before heroes the slayer of Dei Hreven, knight of Hugmen. He by no means was suffered to the king of the Frisians to carry the jewels, the breast decoration, but the banner possessor bowed in the battle, brave mooded atheling. No weapon was slayer, but war grapple broke then the surge of his spirit, his body destroying. Now shall weapon's edge make war for the treasure, and hand and firm sword. Beowulf spake then, boast words uttered, the latest occasion. I braved in my youth days battles unnumbered, still I am willing to struggle to look for fame deeds perform, folk ward and prudent, if the hateful despoiler forth from his cavern seeketh me out. Each of the heroes, helm-bearers sturdy, he thereupon greeted beloved co-liegemen his last salutation. No brand would I bear, no blade for the dragon, wist I away my word boast accomplish, else with the monster as with Grendel I did it. But fire in the battle hot I expect there, furious flame burning. So I fixed on my body target and war mail. The ward of the barrow I'll not flee from a foot length, the foeman uncanny. At the wall 'twill befall us as fate decreeth, each one's creator. I am eager in spirit with the winged war hero to away with all boasting. Bide on the barrow with Byrnies protected, earls in armor, which of us two may better bear his disaster when the battle is over. 'Tis no matter of yours, and man cannot do it, but me and me only, to measure his strength with the monster of malice, might deeds to accomplish. I wish with prowess shall gain the gold, or the battle, direful death woe will drag off your ruler. The mighty champion rose by his shield then, brave under helmet, in battle mail went he, 'neath steep rising stone cliffs, the strength he relied on of one man alone, no work for a coward. Then he saw by the wall who a great many battles had lived through, most worthy, when foot troops collided, stone arches standing, stout-hearted champion, saw a brook from the barrow bubbling out thenceward. The flood of the fountain was fuming with war flame, not nigh to the hoard, for season the briefest could he brave, without burning, the abyss that was yawning, the drake was so fiery. The prince of the wedders caused then that words came from his bosom, so fierce was his fury. The firm-hearted shouted, his battle-clear voice came in resounding, 'neath the grey-coloured stone. Stirred was his hatred, the hoard war distinguished the speech of a man. Time was no longer to look out for friendship. The breath of the monster issued forth first, vapory war-sweat, out of the stone cave. the earth re-echoed. The earl 'neath the barrow lifted his shield, lord of the Geatmen, toward the terrible stranger. The ring-twisted creature's heart was then ready to seek for a struggle. The excellent battle-king first brandished his weapon, the ancient heirloom, of edges unblunted. To the death-planners twain was terror from other. The lord of the troopers intrepidly stood then 'gainst his high-rising shield, when the dragon coiled him quickly together, in corslet he bided. He went then in blazes, bending and striding, hasting him forward, his life and body the targe well protected, for time period shorter than wish demanded for the well-renowned leader, where he then for the first day was forced to be victor, famous in battle, as fate had not willed it. The lord of the Geatmen uplifted his hand then, smiting the fire-drake with sword that was precious, that bright on the bone the blade edge did weaken, bit more feebly than his folk-leader needed, burdened with bale griefs. Then the barrow protector, when the sword-blow had fallen, was fierce in his spirit, flinging his fires, flamings of battle gleamed then afar. The gold friend of Weders boasted no conquests, his battle-sword failed him naked in conflict, as by no means it ought to, long trusty weapon. 'Twas no slight undertaking that Ecgtheow's famous offspring would leave the drake cavern's bottom; he must live in some region other than this, by the will of the dragon, as each one of earthmen existence must forfeit. 'Twas early thereafter the excellent warriors met with each other, anew and afresh the hoard-ward took heart, gasps heaved then his bosom. Sorrow he suffered encircled with fire who the people erst governed. His companions by no means were banded about him, bairns of the princes, with valorous spirit, but they sped to the forest, seeking for safety. The soul-deeps of one were ruffled with care; kin-love can never aught in him waver who well doth consider. Chapter 36. Wealhtheow the Trusty. Beowulf is deserted by friends and by sword. The son of Wehstan was Wealhtheow entitled, shield warrior precious, prince of the Sheaflings, Alfhere's kinsman. He saw his dear liege lord enduring the heat 'neath helmet and visor. Then he minded the holding that erst he had given him, the Waegmunding warriors' wealth-blessed homestead. Each of the folk-rights his father had wielded. He was hot for the battle. His hand seized the target, the yellow-bark shield; he unsheathed his old weapon, which was known among earthmen as the relic of Eanmund, Ohthere's offspring, whom exiled and friendless Wehstan did slay with sword-edge in battle, and carried his kinsman the clear shining helmet, the ring-made byrnie, the old giant weapon that Onele gave him, his boon friend's armor, ready war-trappings. He the feud did not mention, though he'd fatally smitten the son of his brother. Many a half-year held he the treasures, the bill and the byrnie, till his bairn became able, like his father before him, fame-deeds to accomplish. Then he gave him 'mong Geatmen a goodly array of weeds for his warfare. He went from life then old on his journey. 'Twas the earliest time then that the youthful champion might charge in the battle aiding his liege lord; his spirit was dauntless. Nor did kinsman's bequest quail at the battle. This the dragon discovered on their coming together. Wealhtheow uttered many a right saying, said to his fellows sad was his spirit: "I remember the time when, tasting the mead-cup, we promised in the hall the lord of us all who gave us these ring-treasures, that this battle-equipment, swords and helmets, we'd certainly quite him, should need of such aid ever befall him. In the war-band he chose us for this journey spontaneously, stirred us to glory and gave me these jewels, since he held and esteemed us trustworthy spearmen, hardy helm-bearers. though his hero achievement our Lord intended alone to accomplish, ward of his people, for most of achievements, doings audacious, he did among earth folk. The day is now come when the ruler of earth men needeth the vigour of valiant heroes. Let us wend us towards him, the war prince to succour, while the heat yet rageth, horrible fire fight. God wot in me, 'tis mickle the liefer the blaze should embrace my body and eat it with my treasure bestower. Meseemeth not proper to bear our battle shields back to our country, lest first we are able to fell and destroy the long-hating foeman, to defend the life of the prince of the Weders. Well do I know 'tisn't earned by his exploits, he only of Geatmen sorrow should suffer, sink in the battle. Brand and helmet to us both shall be common, shield cover byrnie. Through the bale smoke he stalked then, went under helmet to the help of his chieftain, briefly discoursing. "Beowulf dear, perform thou all fully, as thou formerly saidst in thy youthful years, that while yet thou liv'dst thou wouldst let thine honour not ever be lessened. Thy life thou shalt save, mighty in actions, atheling undaunted, with all of thy vigour. I'll give thee assistance." The dragon came raging, wild-mooded stranger, when these words had been uttered. 'Twas the second occasion, seeking his enemies, men that were hated, with hot gleaming fire-waves. With blaze billows burned the board to its edges. The fight armour failed then to furnish assistance to the youthful spear hero, but the young aged stripling quickly advanced 'neath his kinsman's war target, since his own had been ground in the grip of the fire. Then the warrior king was careful of glory, he soundly smote with sword for the battle, that it stood in the head by hatred driven. Nailing was shivered, the old and iron-made brand of Beowulf in battle deceived him. 'Twas denied him that edges of irons were able to help in the battle. The hand was too mighty, which every weapon, as I heard on inquiry, outstruck in its stroke, when to struggle he carried the wonderful war-sword, it waxed him no better. Then the people despoiler, third of his onsets, fierce raging fire-drake, of feud hate was mindful, charged on the strong one, when chance was afforded, heated with war-grim, seized on his neck with teeth that were bitter. He bloody did wax with soul-gore seething, sword-blood in waves boiled. Section 12. Chapter 37. The Fatal Struggle. Beowulf's Last Moments. Then I heard that at need of the king of the people the upstanding earlmen exhibited prowess, vigour and courage, as suited his nature. He his head did not guard, but the high-minded liegeman's hand was consumed when he succoured his kinsman. So he struck the strife-bringing strange-comer lower, earl-thane in armour, that in went the weapon gleaming and plated, that 'gan there the fire, later to lessen. The liege-lord himself then retained his consciousness, brandished his war-knife, battle-sharp, bitter, that he bare on his armour. The Weder-lord cut the worm in the middle. They had felled the enemy, life drove out then puissant prowess. The pair had destroyed him, land chiefs related. So a liegeman should prove him, a thane-man when needed. To the prince 'twas the last of his era of conquest by his own great achievements, the latest of world-deeds. The wound then began which the earth-dwelling dragon erstwhile had wrought him to burn and to swell. He soon then discovered that bitterest bale-woe in his bosom was raging, poison within. The atheling advanced then, that along by the wall he prudent of spirit might sit on the settle. He saw the giant work, how arches of stone strengthened with pillars the earth-hall eternal inward supported. Then the long-worthy liegeman laid with his hand the far-famous chieftain, gory from sword-edge, refreshing the face of his friend lord and ruler, sated with battle, unbinding his helmet. Beowulf answered, of his injury spake he, his wound that was fatal. He was fully aware he had lived his allotted life days enjoying the pleasures of earth, then past was entirely his measure of days, death very near. My son I would give now my battle equipments, had any of heirs been after me granted, along of my body. This people I governed 50 of winters. No king among my neighbours dared to encounter me with comrades in battle, try me with terror. The time to me ordered I bided at home, mine own kept fitly, sought me no snares, swore me not many oaths in injustice. Joy over all this I'm able to have, though ill with my death wounds. Hence the ruler of earthmen need not charge me with the killing of kinsmen when cometh my life out forth from my body. Fare thou with haste now to behold the hoard 'neath the hoar greyish stone, well-loved Wiglaf, now the worm is a-lying, sore wounded sleepeth, deceived of his treasure. Go thou in haste that treasures of old I, gold wealth may gaze on, together see lying the ether bright jewels, be easier able, having the heap of hoard gems, to yield my life and the land folk whom long I have governed. Chapter 38. Wiglaf plunders the dragon's den. Beowulf's death. Then heard I that Winstan's son very quickly These words being uttered, heeded his liege lord wounded and war-sick, went in his armour, his well-woven ring-mail, 'neath the roof of the barrow. Then the trusty retainer treasure gems many victorious saw, when the seat he came near to, gold treasure sparkling spread on the bottom, wonder on the wall, and the worm creature's cavern, the ancient dawn flyers, vessels a-standing, cups of the ancients of cleansers bereaved, robbed of their ornaments. There were helmets in numbers, old and rust-eaten, arm-bracelets many, artfully woven. Wealth can easily, gold on the sea-bottom, turn into vanity each one of earthmen, arm him who pleaseth. And he saw there lying an all-golden banner high o'er the hoard, of hand wonders greatest, linked with lancets, a light from it sparkled, that the floor of the cavern he was able to look on to examine the jewels. Sight of the dragon not any was offered, but edge off carried him. Then I heard that the hero the hoard treasure plundered, the giant work ancient reeved in the cavern, bare on his bosom the beakers and platters, as himself would fain have it, and took off the standard, the brightest of beacons. The bill had erst injured, its edge was of iron, the old ruler's weapon, him who long had watched as ward of the jewels, who fire terror carried hot for the treasure, rolling in battle, in middlemost darkness, till murdered he perished. The messenger hastened, not loth to return, hurried by jewels. Curiosity urged him if, excellent mooded, alive he should find the lord of the Weders mortally wounded, at the place where he left him. Mid the jewels he found then the famous old chieftain, his liege lord beloved, at his life's end gory. He thereupon 'gan to lave him with water, till the point of his word pierced his breast-hoard. Beowulf spake, the gold gems he noticed, the old one in sorrow. For the jewels I look on thanks do I utter for all to the ruler, wielder of worship, with words of devotion, the Lord everlasting, that he let me such treasures gain for my people ere death overtook me. Since I've bartered the aged life to me granted for treasure of jewels, attend ye henceforward the wants of the war-thanes. I can wait here no longer. The battle-famed bid ye to build them a great hill, bright when I'm burned, at the brim current's limit, as a memory mark to the men I have governed. Aloft it shall tower on whales' nests uprising, that thanes of the ocean hereafter may call it Beowulf's Barrow, those who barks ever dashing from a distance shall drive o'er the darkness of waters. The bold-mooded troop-lord took from his neck then the ring that was golden, gave to his liege-man, the youthful war-hero, his gold-flashing helmet, his collar and war-mail, bade him well to enjoy them. Thou art latest left of the line of our kindred, of Wagmunding people. Weird hath oft carried all of my kinsmen to the Creator's glory, earls in their vigour. I shall after them fare. 'Twas the aged liege-lord's last spoken word in his musings of spirit ere he mounted the fire. The battle waves burning, from his bosom departed, his soul to seek the sainted one's glory. Chapter 39. The Dead Foes. Wiglaf's Bitter Taunts. It had woefully chanced then the youthful retainer to behold on earth the most ardent beloved at his life-day's limit, lying there helpless. The slayer too lay there, of life all bereaved, horrible earth-drake, harassed with sorrow. The round-twisted monster was permitted no longer to govern the ring-cords, but edges of war-swords mightily seized him, battle-sharp, sturdy leavings of hammers, that still from his wounds the flyer from far-land fell to the earth hard by his hoard-house. Hoped he at midnight not ere through the air nor exulting in duels suffered them to see him, but he sank then to earthward through the hero-chief's handwork. I heard sure it throve then but few in the land of liege-men of valour, though of every achievement bold he had proved him, to run 'gainst the breath of the venomous scather, or in the hall of the treasure to trouble with hand-blows, if he watching had found the ward of the hoard-hall on the barrow abiding. Beowulf's part of the treasure of jewels was paid for with death. Each of the twain had attained to the end of life so unlasting. Not long was the time till the tardy at battle returned from the thicket, the timid truce-breakers 10 altogether, who durst not before play with the lances in the prince of the people's pressing emergency, but blushing with shame, with shields they betook them, with arms and armour where the old one was lying, they gazed upon Wiglaf. He was sitting exhausted, foot-going fighter, not far from the shoulders of the lord of the people, would rouse him with water. No whit did it help him, though he hoped for it keenly. He was able on earth not at all in the leader life to retain, and nowise to alter the will of the wielder. The world-ruler's power would govern the actions of each one of heroes, as yet he is doing. From the young one forthwith then could grim-worded greeting be got for him quickly whose courage had failed him. Wiglaf discoursed then. Wechstan his son, sad-mooded hero, looked on the hated. He whose soothness will utter can say that the liege-lord who gave you the jewels, the ornament armour wherein ye are standing, when on ale-bench often he offered to hall men helmet and byrnie, the prince to his liegemen, as best upon earth he was able to find him, that he wildly wasted his war-gear undoubtedly when battle o'ertook him. The troop-king no need had to glorying comrades, yet God permitted him victory-wielder, with weapon unaided himself to avenge, when vigour was needed. I live protection but little was able to give him in battle, and I gan notwithstanding helping my kinsman, my strength overtaxing. He waxed the weaker when with weapon I smote on my mortal opponent, the fire less strongly flamed from his bosom. Too few of protectors came round the king at the critical moment. Now must ornament-taking and weapon-bestowing, home-joyance all, cease for your kindred, food for the people. Each of your warriors must needs be bereaved of rights that he holdeth in landed possessions, when far-away nobles shall learn of your leaving your lord so basely, the dastardly deed. Death is more pleasant to every earl-man than infamous life is. End of section 13. Chapter 40. The Messenger of Death. Then he charged that the battle be announced at the hedge up o'er the cliff edge, where the earl troopers bided the whole of the morning. Mood wretched sat them, bearers of battle shields, both things expecting, the end of his lifetime and the coming again of the liege lord beloved. Little reserved he of news that was known, who the Ness cliff did travel, but he truly discoursed to all that could hear him. Now the free-giving friend-lord of the folk of the Weders, the folk-prince of Geatmen, is fast in his deathbed, by the deeds of the dragon in deathbed abideth. Along with him lieth his life-taking foeman slain with knife wounds. He was wholly unable to injure at all the ill-planning monster with bite of his sword-edge. Wiglaf is sitting, offspring of Wistan, up over Beowulf, earl o'er another whose end-day hath reached him, head-watch holdeth o'er heroes unliving, for friend and for foeman. The folk now expecteth a season of strife when the death of the folk-king to Frank men and Frisians in far lands is published. The war-hatred waxed warm 'gainst the Hugh-men, when Higelac came with an army of vessels faring to Friesland, where the Frank men in battle humbled him and bravely overmight accomplished that the mail-clad warrior must sink in the battle, fell mid his folk-troop. No fret gems presented to the atheling to earlmen, aye was denied us Merewing's mercy. The men of the Swede lands for truce or for truth trust I but little, but widely 'twas known that near Ravenswood Ongentheow sundered Hathkin the Hretling from life-joys, when for pride overweening the war-shiftlings first did seek the Geatmen with savage intentions. Early did Ockhera's age-laden father, old and terrible, give blow in requital, killing the sea-king, the queen-mother rescued, the old one his consort deprived of her gold, Onela's mother, and Ockhera's also, and then followed the feud-nursing foeman till hardly, reaved of their ruler, they Ravenswood entered. Then with vast numbers forces he assaulted the remnant, weary with wounds, woe often promised, the lifelong night to the sad-hearted war-troop. Said he at morning would kill them with edges of weapons, some on the gallows for glee to the fowls. Aid came after to the anxious in spirit, at dawn of the day, after Higelac's bugle and trumpet sound heard they, when the good one proceeded and faring followed the flower of the troopers. Chapter 41. The Messenger's Retrospect. The blood-stained trace of Swedes and Geatmen, the death-rush of warmen, widely was noticed, how the folk with each other feud did awaken. The worthy one went then with well-beloved comrades, old and dejected to go to the fastness. Ongentheow earl upward then turned him. Of Higelac's battle he'd heard on inquiry, the exultant one's prowess, despaired of resistance, with earls of the ocean to be able to struggle, 'gainst sea-going sailors to save the hoard treasure, his wife and his children. He fled after thenceward, old 'neath the earth-wall. Then was offered pursuance to the braves of the Swede-men, the banner to Higelac. They fared then forth o'er the field of protection, when the Hretling heroes hedgeward had thronged them. Then with edges of irons was Ongentheow driven, the grey-haired to tarry, that the troop-ruler had to suffer the power solely of Eofor. Wolf then wildly with weapon assaulted him, one red his son, that for swinge of the edges the blood from his body burst out in currents, forth 'neath his hair. He feared not however grey-headed shifling, but speedily quitted the wasting wound-stroke with worse exchange, when the king of the thane-troop thither did turn him. The wise-mooded son of one red was powerless to give a return blow to the age-hoary man, but his head-shielding helmet first hewed he to pieces, that flecked with gore perforce he did totter, fell to the earth. Not fey was he yet then, but up did he spring, though an edge wound had reached him. Then Higelac's vassal, valiant and dauntless, when his brother lay dead, made his broad-bladed weapon, giant's sword ancient, defence of the giants, bound o'er the shield-wall. The folk-prince succumbed then, shepherd of people, was pierced to the vitals. There were many attendants who bound up his kinsman, carried him quickly when occasion was granted that the place of the slain they were suffered to manage. This pending, one hero plundered the other, his armour of iron from Ongentheow ravished, his hard sword hilted and helmet together. The old one's equipment he carried to Higelac. He the jewels received, and rewards mid the troopers graciously promised, and so did accomplish. The king of the Weders requited the war rush, Hraethel's descendant, when home he repaired him to Eofor and Wulf with wide lavish treasures, to each of them granted 100 of thousands in land and rings wrought out of wire. None upon mid-earth needed to twit him with gifts he gave him, when glory they conquered. And to Eofor then gave he his one only daughter, the honour of home, as an earnest of favour. That's the feud and hatred, as we nigh 'twill happen, the anger of earthmen, that earls of the Swede men will visit on us, when they hear that our leader lifeless is lying, he who long time protected his hoard and kingdom 'gainst hating assailers, who on the fall of the heroes defended of yore the deed mighty Scyldings, did for the troopers what best did avail them, and further moreover hero deeds 'complished. Now is haste most fitting, that the lord of the liegemen we look upon yonder, and that one carry on journey to Deathpyre, who ring presents gave us. Not aught of it all shall melt with the brave one. There's a mass of bright jewels, gold beyond measure, gruesomely purchased, and ending it all ornament rings too bought with his life. These fire shall devour, flames shall cover. No earlman shall wear a jewel memento, nor beautiful virgin have on her neck rings to adorn her. But wretched in spirit bereaved of gold gems she shall oft with others be exiled and banished, since the leader of liegemen hath laughter forsaken, mirth and merriment. Hence many a war spear cold from the morning shall be clutched in the fingers, heaved in the hand. No harp music's sound shall waken the warriors, but the wan-coated raven fain over fey ones freely shall gabble, shall say to the eagle how he sped in the eating, when the wolf to his companion he plundered the slain. So the high-minded hero was rehearsing these stories loathsome to hear. He lied as to few of weirds and of words. All of the war troop arose then, 'neath the eagle's cape sadly betook them, weeping and woeful, the wonder to look at. They saw on the sand then soulless a lying, his slaughter-bed holding, he who rings had given them in days that were done. Then the death-bringing moment was come to the good one, that the king very warlike, wielder of Weders, with wonder-death perished. First they beheld there a creature more wondrous, the worm on the field, in front of them lying. The foeman before them, the fire-spewing dragon, ghostly and grisly guessed in his terrors, was scorched in the fire. As he lay there he measured 50 of feet, came forth in the night-time to rejoice in the air, thereafter departing to visit his den. He in death was then fastened, he would joy in no other earth-hollowed caverns. There stood round about him beakers and vessels, dishes were lying, and dear-valued weapons, with iron rust eaten, as in earth's mighty bosom 1,000 of winters where they had rested. That mighty bequest then with magic was guarded, gold of the ancients, that earlmen not any the ring-hall could touch, save ruling God only. Sooth king of victories gave whom he wished to, he is earth-folk's protector, to open the treasure, e'en to such among mortals as seemed to him proper. Chapter 42. We laugh sad story. The hoard carried off. Then 'twas seen that the journey prospered him little who wrongly within had the ornaments hidden down 'neath the wall. The warden erst slaughtered some few of the folk troop. The feud then thereafter was hotly avenged. 'Tis a wonder where, when the strength famous trooper has attained to the end of life days allotted, then no longer the man may remain with his kinsmen where mead cups are flowing. So to Beowulf happened when the ward of the barrow assaults he sought for, himself had no knowledge how his leaving this life was likely to happen. So to doomsday famous folk leaders down did call it with curses, who 'complished it there, that that man should be ever of ill deeds convicted, confined in foul places, fastened in hell bonds, punished with plagues, who this place should e'er ravage. He cared not for gold, rather the wielder's favour preferred he first to get sight of. We laugh discourse then, Wihstan his son. Oft many earlmen on one man's account must sorrow endure, as to us it hath happened. The liege lord beloved we could little prevail on, kingdom's keeper, counsel to follow, not to go to the guardian of the gold hoard, but let him lie where he long was, lie in his dwelling till the end of the world. Met we a destiny hard to endure, the hoard has been looked at, been gained very grimly, too grievous the fate that the prince of the people pricked to come thither. I was therein, and all of it looked at, the building's equipments, since access was given me, not kindly at all entrance permitted within under earth wall. Hastily seized I and held in my hands a huge weighing burden of hoard treasures costly, thither outbear them to my liege lord beloved. Life was yet in him, and consciousness also. The old one discoursed then much and mournfully, commanded to greet you, bade that remembering the deeds of your friend lord ye build on the fire hill of corpses a lofty burial barrow, broad and far famous, as mid world dwelling warriors he was widely most honoured while he revelled in riches. Let us rouse us and hasten again to see and seek for the treasure, the wonder 'neath wall. The way I will show you, that close ye may look at the ring gems sufficient, and gold in abundance. Let the bier with promptness fully be fashioned, when forth we shall come, and lift we our lord, then, where long he shall tarry, well-beloved warrior 'neath the wielder's protection. Then the son of Wihstan bade orders be given, mood valiant man, to many of heroes, holders of homesteads, that they thither from far, leaders of liegemen, should look for the good one with wood for his pyre. The flame shall now swallow, the wan fire shall wax the warrior's leader who the rain of the iron often abided, when, sturdily hurled, the storm of the arrows leapt o'er linden wall the lance rendered service, furnished with feathers, followed the arrow. Now the wise mood son of Wihstan did summon the best of the braves from the band of the ruler, seven together. 'Neath the enemy's roof he went with the seven, one of the heroes who fared at the front, a fire-blazing torchlight bare in his hand. No lot then deceived who that hoard should havoc, when the hero earls saw it lying in the cavern uncared for entirely, rusting to ruin. They rued then but little that they hastily hence hauled out the treasure, the dear-valued jewels. The dragon eke pushed they, the worm o'er the wall, let the wave currents take him, the waters enwined the ward of the treasures. There wooden gold on a wain was loaded, a mass unmeasured. The men leader off they, the hero hoary, to Whale's Nest was carried. Chapter 43. The burning of Beowulf. The folk of the Geatmen got him then ready a pile on the earth strong for the burning, behung with helmets, hero knights' targets, and bright shining burnies as he begged they should have them. Then wailing war heroes their world-famous chieftain, their liege lord beloved, laid in the middle. Soldiers began then to make on the barrow the largest of dead fires. Dark o'er the vapour the smoke cloud ascended, the sad roaring fire, mingled with weeping, the wind roar subsided till the building of bone it had broken to pieces, hot in the heart. Heavy in spirit they mood sad lamented the men leader's ruin, and mournful measures the much grieving widow. The men of the Weders made accordingly a hill on the height, high and extensive, of sea-going sailors to be seen from a distance, and the brave one's beacon built where the fire was, in 10 days' space, with a wall surrounded it, as wisest of world-folk could most worthily plan it. They placed in the barrow rings and jewels, all such ornaments as erst in the treasure war-mooded men had won in possession. The earnings of earlmen to earth they entrusted, the gold to the dust, where it yet remaineth as useful to mortals as in foregoing eras. Round the dead mound rode then the doughty in battle, bairns of all 12 of the chiefs of the people. More would they mourn, lament for their ruler, speak in measure, mention him with pleasure, weighted his worth, and his warlike achievements, mightily commended, as 'tis meet one praise his liege lord in words and love him in spirit, when forth from his body he fares to destruction. So lamented mourning the men of the Geats, fond loving vassals, the fall of their lord, said he was kindest of kings under heaven, gentlest of men, most winning of manner, friendliest to folk-troops, and fondest of honour. End of section 14. End of Beowulf by Unknown.
Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe